Hello everyone, I'm the DreamTeller and I'm here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now get comfortable and relax. The first light went out at 2:17 a.m. I checked my watch twice because that's what you do when something doesn't make sense. I'd worked security at Riverside Tower for 3 years, and the motion sensors never failed. But there it was. The fluorescent panel at the far end of the east corridor on the 14th floor just went dark. No warning, no flicker, just darkness. I sat up straighter in my chair at the security desk, eyes fixed on the monitor. The hallway stretched out in crisp black and white on the screen. Empty. The motion sensors showed no activity, but then the next light panel dimmed and died, and the next. Like dominoes falling in slow motion, creating a wave of darkness moving toward the camera. My hand reached for the radio clipped to my belt. The plastic was cold against my palm. "Bill, you up on 14? Bill worked maintenance, usually spent nights fixing whatever broke during business hours. Static crackled. "Negative, John. Down in the basement checking the boiler." My throat went dry. "Any scheduled work on the lighting system?" "Nope. Problems?" I watched another light go out. "Maybe. I'll check it out." The weight of my flashlight felt reassuring against my hip as I stood. My boots squeaked against the polished floor of the lobby. The night shift was always quiet. Just me, Bill somewhere in the building's guts, and 23 floors of empty offices. The elevator ride to 14 felt longer than usual. My reflection in the steel doors looked tired. Dark circles under my eyes. 3-day stubble I needed to take care of. The elevator chimed. 14. I stepped out into the main corridor, my hand automatically moving to rest on my flashlight. The air felt different up here, colder than it should be. The building's temperature control was automated, kept every floor at exactly 72 degrees day and night, but I could see my breath. Down the hall to my right, the lights were still out, creating a pool of darkness that shouldn't be there. The emergency lights hadn't kicked in, which meant the circuit breaker hadn't tripped. This was something else. My boots made soft sounds against the carpet as I walked toward the dark section. The fluorescent panels above me hummed normally, but 20 feet ahead, silence. No hum, no light, just emptiness. I pulled out my flashlight and clicked it on. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the gray carpet, the beige walls, the closed office doors. Nothing out of place. I swept the light back and forth as I walked. The carpet showed no footprints besides my own. A soft click behind me. I spun around. Another light had gone out closer to where I stood. My heart rate picked up. The darkness was moving again, spreading both ways now, ahead of me and behind. Click. 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 3 more panels went dark. I keyed my radio. "Bill, I need you up here, now." Static answered. I tried again. Nothing. The cold intensified. My fingers felt stiff around the flashlight. Click. Click. The darkness crept closer, panel by panel. I backed up, keeping my light trained on the carpet ahead of me. Still no signs of anyone else. No footprints. No shadows except my own. My back hit the wall. I glanced left. Darkness. Right. Darkness closing in. Only a small circle of fluorescent light remained above me. The flashlight beam seemed weaker now, barely penetrating the unnatural black. The last panel flickered. I heard something then. A sound like breathing, but wrong. Too slow. Too deep. The kind of breath that comes from something bigger than human lungs. The light above me died. My flashlight beam provided the only illumination now, and it was definitely weaker. The battery was fresh. I'd changed it at the start of my shift. But the darkness seemed to be eating the light, swallowing it. The breathing sound grew closer. I swept the beam in an arc around me. Nothing, but I could feel something there, just beyond where my light could reach. The air grew colder still. Frost started forming on the walls. My radio crackled. Through the static, I heard Bill's voice. "John, where are you? The power readings for 14 are going crazy." I raised the radio to my mouth, but before I could respond, something moved at the edge of my light beam. Not a shadow. Shadows don't move against darkness. This was more like a void, a place where the darkness was somehow darker. It shifted like oil underwater, formless but with purpose. I ran. The flashlight beam bounced wildly as I sprinted down the hall toward the elevator. The darkness followed, flowing along the walls and ceiling. The breathing sound grew louder, filling the corridor with its wrong rhythm. My fingers fumbled with the elevator call button. Nothing happened. No light, no hum of machinery. I turned toward the emergency stairs instead. The door handle was ice cold, burning against my palm as I yanked it open. The stairwell lights were out too. I pointed my flashlight down. The beam barely illuminated the first few steps. The breathing echoed in the concrete space, coming from above and below now. Multiple sources, multiple things, I had no choice. I started down, keeping one hand on the railing, moving as fast as I dared. The metal rail grew colder under my palm. Frost spread ahead of me, crackling as it formed. 10 floors down. 9. 8. The darkness followed, flowing down the walls like water. My flashlight grew dimmer with each floor. The beam was barely there now, a faint glow that illuminated nothing. Something brushed against my shoulder. Cold. Colder than ice. Colder than anything I'd ever felt. My arm went numb. The flashlight slipped from my fingers, clattering down the stairs into the darkness. Its weak light vanished. I ran blind now, counting steps, praying I wouldn't miss one. The breathing surrounded me. Close. Getting closer. The cold seeped into my bones. Another touch on my back. My legs went numb. I fell, catching myself against the wall. The concrete felt like frozen steel under my hands. I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. The lobby was 4 floors down, just 4 more floors. I pushed myself up, forced my legs to move. The darkness pressed in, solid now, like being underwater. Each breath was harder than the last. The air felt thick, resistant. Something grabbed my ankle. I kicked, felt nothing solid, but the grip remained. The cold spread up my leg. I couldn't feel my foot anymore. Then my calf. Then my knee. I threw myself forward, half falling down the next flight of stairs. The grip broke. I stumbled, caught the railing, kept moving. The breathing was right behind me now. Heavy. Hungry. 3 floors. 2. The darkness was total. I couldn't even see my hand in front of my face. But I could feel them around me. Spaces where the darkness had weight and presence. They moved like sharks circling prey. 1 floor to go. My legs were lead weights, each step a battle against exhaustion and cold. The numbness had spread to my hips. My chest felt frozen. Each breath sent daggers of ice through my lungs. I hit the lobby door at full speed, slamming it open. Light flooded my vision. Blessed, normal fluorescent light. I stumbled forward, gasping. Behind me, the darkness boiled in the doorway but didn't advance. The breathing sound faded. I collapsed onto the lobby floor, shaking uncontrollably. Frost covered my uniform, already melting in the warm air. I couldn't feel my legs or my left arm. My radio crackled. John, where are you? The power's stabilizing, but something weird is happening up there." I keyed the radio with trembling fingers. "Lobby," I managed. "Get down here now." Bill found me there 10 minutes later, still unable to stand. He called an ambulance despite my protests. The paramedics diagnosed severe hypothermia. Couldn't explain how I'd developed it inside a climate-controlled building. I quit the next day. Couldn't face another night shift, another dark corridor. But I watched the news about Riverside Tower. 3 months later, a cleaning crew member disappeared from the 14th floor. They found his cart in the east corridor, covered in frost. 6 months after that, an office worker staying late vanished. The security cameras showed the lights going out one by one, just like that night. They never found her. Sometimes I drive past the building late at night. I always look up at the 14th floor. Sometimes the lights are on, everything normal. But sometimes I see darkness moving behind the windows. And if I listen carefully, I can hear breathing. Deep, slow, hungry breathing, carried on the wind. I don't work night shifts anymore. And I always leave the lights on. When people ask why I left security work, I tell them I wanted better hours. It's easier than explaining what happened. Easier than admitting that something impossible lives in that building. Easier than remembering the sound of that breathing. But sometimes, on cold nights when I'm alone, I look at the shadows in the corners of my room and wonder if they're darker than they should be. I listen for breathing that's too slow, too deep. And I remember the lesson I learned that night. Darkness isn't empty. Sometimes it hungers. Sometimes it hunts. I keep a flashlight by my bed now. The battery's always fresh. But sometimes, when I click it on in the middle of the night, the beam seems weaker than it should be, like something's eating the light. Those nights I lie awake until dawn, watching the shadows, waiting, listening, remembering the cold. They never did fix the lights on the 14th floor. The maintenance logs show dozens of attempts. New wiring, new panels, new everything. But the lights still go out, one by one, moving like something's walking down that corridor. I've thought about telling someone in authority. The police, the building owners, anyone. But who would believe me? What would I say? That the darkness is alive? That it hunts? That it's patient and cold and hungry? So I stay quiet. I work my day job. I avoid tall buildings. I keep the lights on. But sometimes when I'm driving home late and I pass Riverside Tower, I look up at the 14th floor. And sometimes, just sometimes, I see a face in one of those dark windows. Not a human face. Just a darker patch of shadow, shaped like features, pressed against the glass. It watches me drive past. And I swear, even through the closed windows of my car, even over the sound of traffic and wind, I can hear breathing. I drive faster those nights. But I know it doesn't matter. Because now I understand something that most people don't. The darkness doesn't need to chase you, it just needs to wait. The first time I heard the footsteps, I was doing my 2 a.m. round in the science building. I stopped walking. They stopped too. I started again. They followed. This wasn't how I planned to spend my retirement years, jumping at shadows in empty hallways. I took this night security job at Preston Valley Community College 3 months ago. Good pay, easy work, they said. Just walk around, check the doors, write reports. Perfect for a former postal worker looking to keep busy. The day shift supervisor handed me the keys, showed me the routes, and that was that. The campus sprawls across 30 acres, 5 main buildings, all brick and glass, connected by covered walkways. Science building in the north, liberal arts to the south, student center in the middle. Library and administration flank the east and west. At night, motion sensor lights click on as I walk. They snap off behind me, leaving darkness in my wake. That first night with the footsteps, I radioed Dave at the security desk. Got someone in science, second floor? Negative, Dave said. Cameras show all clear, just you up there. I kept walking. The footsteps shadowed me, always 3 or 4 paces behind. The sound was light, like someone in soft shoes trying to walk quietly. When I reached the stairwell, I spun around fast. Empty hallway. Just rows of closed classroom doors and dark windows reflecting the emergency lights. I wrote it off as echoes. Old buildings make weird sounds. But the next night, they came back. Same soft steps, same distance. I started varying my routine, taking different routes each night. The steps followed me through every building, upstairs, down halls. After 2 weeks, I got bold. I'd stop suddenly, wait 5 minutes, then start walking backward. The steps would begin again, still behind me, like they knew which way I faced. I set up my phone to record the sound. The recording picked up my boots on the tile, but nothing else. I started dreading the night shifts. My heart would race when I heard those steps start up. Sweat would roll down my back even in the air conditioning. I'd find myself walking faster and faster until I was almost running, those soft footfalls keeping pace behind me. The head of security noticed the circles under my eyes. "Everything okay, Jack? You look tired." "Fine," I said, "just not sleeping great." I couldn't tell him I was going crazy over phantom footsteps. He'd think I was losing it. Last night something changed. I was checking the 3rd floor of liberal arts when the steps started. But this time, they were closer. Much closer. I could almost feel breath on my neck. My hands shook as I gripped my flashlight. I broke into a run. The steps ran with me, right on my heels. I sprinted down the hallway, heart pounding. At the end of the corridor, I slammed through the fire door into the stairwell. The door caught on something as it swung shut. Just for a second, but long enough. Long enough for me to hear a soft laugh behind me. I called in sick tonight. Told them I had the flu. I'm sitting here at my kitchen table staring at my uniform hanging by the door. My shift starts in an hour. The phone's ringing, probably Dave wondering if I'm coming in. My hands won't stop shaking. Because now I know something's following me in those halls. Something that's getting braver, getting closer. And sooner or later it's going to catch up. But I need this job. The bills won't pay themselves. So I'll put on that uniform. I'll clip on that badge. I'll walk those dark hallways again. And I'll listen for footsteps. The college looks different tonight. The familiar buildings loom larger, their shadows deeper. I punch in at the security desk. Dave gives me a look but doesn't mention my absence yesterday. "Quiet night so far," he says, eyes on the bank of monitors. "Maintenance fixed that squeaky door in science." I nod, check my equipment. Flashlight, radio, keys. My palms are already sweating. The clock shows 10 p.m., 8 hours to go. I start my first round in administration. The building feels empty, but not the normal empty, like it's holding its breath. My footsteps echo on the tile floor. Just my footsteps. For now. The motion lights click on ahead of me, illuminating the hallway in sections. I check each office door, marking them off in my log. Everything normal. Everything quiet. Too quiet. Then I hear it. That soft step behind me. My heart slams against my ribs. I force myself to keep walking, keep checking doors. The steps follow, closer than ever before. Close enough that I should see someone if I turn around. But I won't turn around. Not this time. I reach the end of the hall. Have to turn left or right. The steps pause, waiting for my choice. Sweat runs down my face. My uniform shirt sticks to my back. "What do you want?" My voice sounds strange in the silence. No answer. Just that patient, waiting presence behind me. I turn left. The steps follow. Right on my heels now. If I stopped suddenly, we'd collide. The thought makes my skin crawl. My radio crackles. "Jack, you okay up there?" Dave's voice makes me jump. Getting some weird shadows on the cameras. I reach for the radio, but my hands are shaking too bad. I drop it. The clatter echoes down the hall. When I bend to pick it up, I feel something brush against my hair. I run. I run like I haven't run in 20 years, breath burning in my chest. The steps run with me, matching my pace exactly. The motion lights can't keep up, leaving me in darkness between bright flashes. I slam through doors, take corners blind, no destination in mind except away. I end up in the library. 3 stories of books and shadows. The main reading room stretches out before me. Tables and chairs, dim shapes in the emergency lighting. I stop, hands on knees, gulping air. The steps stop too, right behind me. "What are you?" My voice shakes. "Why are you following me?" A soft laugh, like the one I heard in the stairwell. Then something cold touches the back of my neck. I scream. The sound bounces off the high ceiling, comes back distorted. I sprint between the shelves, knocking books to the floor. The steps follow, unhurried now, like they know I can't escape. My radio crackles again. "Jack, where are you? I'm calling the police." I reach the far wall. No doors here, just windows looking out over the dark campus. I spin around, back against the glass. The steps approach slowly, getting closer, closer. I can hear breathing now, not my own. My flashlight beam shows empty air, then the cold touch again, this time on my face, like fingers tracing my cheek. I close my eyes. Please, I whisper. Please leave me alone. The touch withdraws. The breathing stops. When I open my eyes, I'm alone in the library. Really alone. I slide down the wall, sit on the floor. My radio lies silent. Outside, I see police lights approaching the campus. That was 3 days ago. I quit the next morning. Let them keep my last paycheck. The new security guard starts tonight. Young guy, former military. Looks tough. I should warn him about the footsteps, about what waits in those dark hallways. But he wouldn't believe me. I wouldn't have believed me. So I sit here in my apartment, watching the sun set. In an hour, the motion lights will start clicking on across campus. The new guard will begin his rounds, and somewhere in those empty buildings, soft footsteps will start to follow. I keep thinking about that laugh, about those cold fingers on my face. Whatever followed me through those halls, it wasn't human. It never was. And it's still there, waiting for the next person to walk those corridors alone. Sometimes at night, I think I hear footsteps in my apartment building's hallway. Soft steps that stop outside my door. But that's crazy, right? It can't follow me here. Can it? I don't check the hallway anymore when I hear those steps. I just sit very still and wait for them to go away. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. The sun's almost down now. The new guard will be starting his shift. I should call him, should tell him what to expect. But my phone's in the other room, and I hear footsteps in the hallway, getting closer. The first time I smelled her perfume, I was reshelving books in the medieval history section. I'd worked at the Morgan Heights Library for 15 years, and I knew every creak of the hardwood floors, every draft that whistled through the century-old windows. But that scent, lilacs mixed with something older, mustier, that was new. My nose twitched. The smell didn't belong. I set down the cart of books and checked my watch. 9:45 p.m. The library had been closed for nearly 2 hours. I was alone, like always, during my night shift. The security guard, Pete, only patrolled the exterior. The perfume grew stronger. A chill ran up my spine, and the hair on my arm stood up. I heard the soft tap of footsteps behind me, but when I turned, the aisle was empty. Just rows of leather-bound books stretching into shadow where the motion sensor lights hadn't activated. That was 3 months ago. Since then, I've encountered her, or it, or whatever it is, dozens of times. Always after closing. Always when I'm alone. Tonight started like any other night. I locked the front doors at 8 p.m. sharp after the last student trudged out with an armful of textbooks. I did my usual walkthrough of all 4 floors, checking for stragglers in the study rooms and between the stacks. Finding none, I grabbed my cleaning cart and started my nightly routine. The Morgan Heights Library isn't just any library. Built in 1886, it's one of the oldest buildings in town. Red brick exterior, gleaming copper dome, elaborate woodwork inside that would cost a fortune to replicate today. The kind of place that belongs in a movie about haunted Victorian mansions. I started on the ground floor, dusting shelves and straightening chairs. Everything normal. The usual creaks and settling noises of an old building. The hum of the ancient heating system. My shoes squeaking on the polished floors. When I reached the second floor, my skin prickled. The temperature dropped at least 10 degrees between the stairwell and the main reading room. I could see my breath. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing off the high ceiling. No answer. I pushed my cart toward the reference section, pretending everything was fine. But my hands shook as I sprayed cleaner on the study tables. That's when I caught the first whiff of lilac. My stomach clenched. I gripped the edge of the table, steadying myself. The perfume grew stronger, mixing with the sharp smell of the cleaning spray. Footsteps behind me, soft, like someone walking in slippers. I forced myself to turn around slowly. She stood at the end of the aisle, about 30 feet away. A woman in a high-necked blue dress that brushed the floor, her dark hair piled on top of her head in an elaborate style I'd only seen in old photographs. She was slightly transparent. I could make out the spine labels on the books through her body. My throat went dry. I'd seen glimpses before, a flash of movement, a shadow that shouldn't be there, but never this clear, never for this long. She didn't move like a person, more like how smoke drifts through the air. One moment she was at the end of the aisle. The next she had glided halfway toward me without taking a step. I backed away, bumping into my cart. Spray bottles clattered to the floor. The sound echoed through the empty library. The woman stopped. Her face turned toward the noise. That's when I noticed her eyes, or rather, the lack of them. Where eyes should have been, there were only dark hollows. My legs went weak. I gripped the cart harder, my knuckles turning white. The woman's head tilted like she was studying me. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "What do you want?" I whispered. She raised one translucent hand and pointed behind me. I didn't want to turn around. Every instinct screamed not to take my eyes off her, but something compelled me to look. She was pointing at the card catalog, the old wooden one we kept for historical display. It hadn't been used in decades, not since everything went digital. When I turned back, she had moved closer. 10 feet away now. The lilac smell was overwhelming. My eyes watered. "The card catalog?" I asked. My voice shook. "You want me to look in there?" She nodded. Just once, a slight dip of her chin. I took a deep breath and stepped toward the catalog. The woman drifted back, giving me space. My hands trembled as I pulled open one of the thin drawers. Hundreds of yellowed cards covered in faded typewriter ink. "Which one?" I asked. She pointed again, more insistently. I started flipping through cards. Nothing jumped out at me, just standard library classifications, author names, titles. The temperature dropped lower. My teeth chattered. Frost formed on the wooden drawer. "I don't understand what you want me to find," I said. She moved closer, 3 feet away now. Close enough that I could see the intricate lace on her collar. Close enough to notice that her dress had water stains around the hem like she'd been walking in the rain. Her hand reached toward the cards. I flinched back, but she wasn't reaching for me. Her fingers passed through the cards, stopping at one in particular. The card frosted over. I pulled it out with numb fingers. The ink was faded, but I could still make out the text. Morgan, Elizabeth A. Library Director, 1886-1902. My breath caught. Everyone who worked at the library knew about Elizabeth Morgan. She was the first director back when the building opened. She died in her office on the 4th floor. Heart attack, according to the records. I looked up. The woman, Elizabeth, stood directly in front of me now. This close, I could see water dripping from her hair, from her dress. Not rainwater. It was dark, murky, like pond water. The official records were wrong. I knew that now with absolute certainty. Elizabeth Morgan didn't die of a heart attack. She opened her mouth again. This time, a sound came out. Not words, but the gurgle of water in a throat. Water trickled from the corners of her mouth. I ran. Dropped the card, knocked over my cart, and ran for the stairs. Her gurgling followed me. The lilac smell chased me down 3 flights. I didn't stop until I reached the front desk, slumped against it, gasping for breath. The main floor was warm, normal. No sign of Elizabeth. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and Googled Elizabeth Morgan, Library Director, death, 1902. Most results just repeated the heart attack story. But there was one old newspaper article, scanned and uploaded to the Historical Society's website. The article mentioned that Elizabeth had last been seen working late one stormy night. Her body was found the next morning in her office. The cause of death was listed as heart failure, but the article noted that her clothes were inexplicably soaked through, as if she had been swimming. I read further. Elizabeth had been pushing to expand the library's rare book collection. She'd secured several valuable donations, worth a fortune even back then. The week after her death, 3 of the most valuable books disappeared, never recovered. The pieces clicked together. Someone had killed her, probably drowned her in the ornamental pond that used to be behind the library. Killed her for the books, or to cover up their theft. I looked at my watch. 11:30 p.m. I had another hour left on my shift, but there was no way I was going back upstairs. Not tonight. I pulled out my phone again and started digging deeper into the library's history. If Elizabeth was trying to tell me something, I needed to figure out what it was. Over the next few weeks, I developed a routine. During the day, I researched everything I could find about Elizabeth Morgan and the missing books. At night, I waited for her to appear. She came more frequently now, always after closing. Always on the second floor near the card catalog. The pattern was the same. Temperature drop, lilac smell, footsteps. Sometimes she just watched me from the end of an aisle. Sometimes she tried to show me things. Specific books, old photographs on the walls, filing cabinet drawers. I started keeping notes. Which books she pointed to. Which photographs caught her attention. Slowly, a picture emerged. Elizabeth had been working with a private collector, arranging to purchase several rare medieval manuscripts. The collector died mysteriously 2 days after Elizabeth. His house burned down the same night, destroying all records of the transaction. The current value of the missing books, adjusted for inflation, over $5 million. I traced what happened to the library staff from that time period. Most had mundane stories, retirements, moves to other cities, normal deaths years later. But one name stuck out. James Crawford, Elizabeth's assistant director. He quit suddenly a month after her death, moved to Europe, and over the next several years he sold several rare books to private collectors. Books matching the descriptions of the ones that disappeared from the library. Tonight I brought printouts of everything I'd found, spread them out on a study table on the second floor. Photos, articles, records. Is this what you've been trying to tell me? I asked the empty air. About Crawford? The lilac smell filled the air. Elizabeth appeared beside the table. She looked different tonight, more solid somehow. The hollow eye sockets were now filled with pale blue eyes. She nodded. He killed you, I said. For the books. She pointed to one of the photographs, an old staff picture from 1901. Crawford stood next to Elizabeth, hand on her shoulder, smiling at the camera. You trusted him, I said. Water dripped from her dress, forming a puddle on the floor, but her eyes were clear now, focused on me. What do you want me to do? I asked. Crawford is long dead. The books are probably scattered in private collections across Europe. She shook her head and pointed to a different paper, a shipping manifest I'd found dated 1903. It listed 3 crates of books sent from Crawford's address in London to a storage facility in our town. My eyes widened. They never left? The books are still here somewhere? Elizabeth nodded. She drifted toward the window and pointed outside, toward the old industrial district. Most of those buildings were abandoned now, but some of the old storage facilities were still standing. You want me to find them, I said, to bring them back to the library. She smiled, the first time I'd seen her do that. The effect was unsettling with her pale eyes and water-bloated features, but I understood the sentiment. Okay, I said. I'll try. But this is going to take time, and I'll need help. Someone with authority to actually recover the books if we find them. Elizabeth's form started to fade. The lilac smell grew fainter. Will you help me? I asked quickly. Show me where to look. She nodded once more before disappearing completely. The temperature returned to normal. The puddle of water was gone, leaving no trace it had ever been there. I gathered up my papers with shaking hands. Part of me still couldn't believe I was doing this, following the instructions of a ghost to solve a century-old theft. But I knew what I'd seen, what I'd been seeing for months now. Tomorrow I'd start making calls to the Historical Society, to the police department's cold case division, to the library board. Someone would listen, and with Elizabeth's help, we'd find those books. I looked at my watch. 12:30 a.m., end of my shift. As I packed up my cleaning cart, I caught one last whiff of lilac perfume. "Good night, Elizabeth," I said softly. The scent lingered for a moment, then faded away. But I knew she'd be back tomorrow night. We had work to do. The night security monitors showed nothing unusual at 2:47 a.m. when I first saw it. Just empty hallways and dark offices on all 12 floors of the Meridian building. But there it was on the 10th floor, a black shape standing motionless by the window. I blinked hard and leaned closer to the grainy screen. The figure didn't move. I've worked security at this building for 6 years. I know every corner, every shadow cast by the streetlights outside. This was different. The shape was roughly human-sized, but somehow wrong. Too dark, too still. My mouth went dry as I stared at it. The radio crackled. "Everything okay down there, Mike?" It was Dave at the front desk. "Yeah," I said, my voice catching. "Just thought I saw something on 10. Probably nothing." "Want me to check it out?" "No, I got it." I stood up, my chair squeaking against the floor. Protocol said we had to investigate any possible intrusion, even if it was probably just shadows playing tricks. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. My hand kept drifting to the pepper spray on my belt. The building was locked down tight. Card access only after 6 p.m., motion sensors on every floor, cameras covering every angle. Nobody could have gotten in without us knowing. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding. The 10th floor was pitch black except for the faint glow of exit signs and the city lights filtering through the windows. I pulled out my flashlight and swept the beam across the empty cubicles. Nothing moved. My footsteps echoed as I walked toward the window where I'd seen the figure. The space was empty now, just another dark office with generic artwork on the walls and dusty fake plants in the corners. I relaxed slightly and lowered my flashlight. Then something shifted in my peripheral vision, just for a split second. I spun around, heart pounding. The beam caught nothing but more empty cubicles. "Security," I called out. My voice sounded thin in the darkness. "If someone's here, show yourself now." Silence. Just the quiet hum of the ventilation system. I did a thorough sweep of the whole floor, checked every office, conference room, and storage closet. Everything was locked and undisturbed. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Back at my desk, I rewound the security footage. The figure was clearly visible at 2:47 a.m., standing perfectly still by the window for exactly 3 minutes before seeming to fade away. I played it again, and again. There was no glitch, no camera malfunction. Something had been there. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've seen it 6 more times. Always at night, always on different floors. Sometimes by the windows, sometimes in doorways or at the end of dark hallways. Never when anyone else is around to verify what I'm seeing. The cameras catch it maybe half the time. I've started documenting every sighting. Night 3, 8th floor, 1:15 a.m. Figure appeared in the break room doorway for approximately 30 seconds. No movement. Disappeared when I reached for my phone to take a photo. Night 5, 4th floor, 3:24 a.m. Saw it reflected in the window of an empty office. Turned around and nothing was there. Caught on camera. Night 7, 12th floor, 11:52 p.m. Standing at the end of the main hallway. Seemed taller than before. Vanished when I blinked. Night 8, 6th floor, 2:33 a.m. In the corner of my eye as I was doing rounds. Gone when I turned to look directly at it. Not on camera. Night 10, 9th floor, 4:17 a.m. By the elevator. Definitely human-shaped, but wrong somehow. Too dark, like a hole in space. Camera footage shows only static for those 2 minutes. Last night was the worst. I was alone in the security office around 3 a.m., watching the monitors as usual. Movement caught my eye on the screen showing the 7th floor, The figure was there, but this time it was facing the camera directly. I felt the blood drain from my face. In all the previous sightings, it had been in profile or facing away. Now I could see where its face should be. Just emptiness, darker than the darkness around it. My hands were shaking as I radioed Dave. "You need to see this." "What's up?" "7th floor camera. Tell me you see it too." A pause. "See what?" "It's empty up there." I looked back at the screen. The figure was gone. But when I rewound the footage, there it was, staring into the camera for a full minute before vanishing. "Never mind," I told Dave. "Must have been my imagination." But I knew what I'd seen, and I knew I had to find out what this thing was. I spent my day off researching the building's history. The Meridian was built in 1983, pretty unremarkable except for one incident in 1997. A maintenance worker fell to his death from the 10th floor. The window he was cleaning somehow came loose from its frame. They ruled it an accident, but there were questions about the safety equipment and inspection records. That night, I came in early for my shift. I'd brought some new equipment, an infrared thermometer, an EMF meter I'd borrowed from a friend who did amateur ghost hunting, and a better camera than my phone. "You okay, Mike?" Dave asked when he saw my bag of gear. "You've seemed on edge lately." "I'm fine," I said, just being thorough. The first few hours of my shift were quiet. I kept all the monitors up, watching for any sign of movement. The EMF meter sat silent on my desk. The temperature readings stayed steady. At 2:46 a.m., the meter suddenly spiked. All the hairs on my arms stood up. The air felt thick, like right before a thunderstorm. I checked the monitors. 9th floor, by the window. There it was. The figure seemed more solid than before, less like a shadow and more like something real. My hands were steady as I grabbed my camera and headed for the elevator. Whatever this thing was, I was going to get proof. The 9th floor was colder than usual. My breath fogged in front of my face as I stepped out of the elevator. The EMF meter in my pocket was going crazy, the display showing readings off the scale. I moved quietly through the darkness, camera ready. The figure was still there, a black silhouette against the city lights outside. As I got closer, I could see it wasn't quite touching the floor. It hovered about an inch above the carpet. 20 feet away. 15. 10. The temperature dropped with every step. At 5 feet, I raised the camera. The figure turned. I froze. Where its face should have been was just absence. A void that hurt my eyes to look at. My chest felt tight, like all the air was being sucked away. The camera slipped from my numb fingers. The figure moved, not walking but gliding closer. The darkness around it seemed to spread, reaching out like smoke. I stumbled backwards, fumbling for my flashlight. The beam passed right through the figure. It kept coming. 3 feet away now. The cold was unbearable, my lungs burned. The darkness was creeping into the edges of my vision. My back hit the wall. The figure loomed over me, that horrible empty face inches from mine. I could feel it pulling at something inside me, like it was trying to draw out my breath, my heat, my life. I closed my eyes and slid down the wall, my legs giving out. The cold penetrated to my bones. I couldn't breathe. The radio on my belt crackled. "Mike? You up there?" Motion sensor just went off on 9. The voice seemed to break whatever hold the figure had on me. I gasped in a lungful of air and opened my eyes. It was gone. The temperature was already rising. The EMF meter had gone quiet. "I'm here," I managed to say into the radio. "All clear. Just checking something." My hands were shaking so bad I could barely pick up the camera. When I reviewed the footage later, all I got was static. I've put in my 2 weeks' notice. Let someone else work the night shift. Let someone else try to explain the cold spots, the EMF spikes, the dark figure that stands by the windows and stares out at the city with its void of a face. But sometimes I wonder, what is it looking for? What does it see out there in the darkness? And what would have happened if Dave hadn't radioed when he did? I still drive past the Meridian building sometimes, usually late at night when I can't sleep. I always check the windows, floor by floor. And sometimes, just sometimes, I see something. A shadow darker than darkness, standing perfectly still, staring down at the street below. I don't stop anymore. I don't look too long. But I know it's there, waiting. Maybe for another maintenance worker. Maybe for another security guard. Maybe for anyone who stays too late and looks too closely at the shapes in the darkness. All I know is, I'm done with night shifts. Let someone else investigate the figure in the window. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. The security camera in the lobby hasn't worked for 3 weeks. I know because I've been meaning to call maintenance about it. That detail sticks in my mind now. Maybe if it had been working, I'd have proof of what I saw that night at Lakeside Resort. I'd been doing the night shift at the front desk for 8 months. Not much happens after midnight at a lakefront resort in October. The summer crowds are gone. The fall colors have faded. Most nights I just do paperwork and watch Netflix on my phone. That changed on October 12th. The wind picked up around 1 a.m., rattling the front windows. Temperature dropped fast. I could feel the draft coming through the revolving door. Only 3 rooms were occupied that night. A business traveler in 204, an elderly couple in 312, and a family with 2 kids in 318. I'd checked them all in myself during the afternoon shift before staying on for night duty. I was updating the maintenance log when movement caught my eye through the lobby windows. A man walking across the front lawn toward the lake. He wore an old-style suit, the kind with high-waisted pants and wide lapels. Dark fabric, maybe navy blue. A fedora on his head. Who wears a fedora these days? The way he walked seemed wrong, smooth, almost gliding, like his feet barely touched the grass. And despite the wind whipping the trees around, his clothes didn't move at all. I grabbed my flashlight and key card. Resort policy says we have to check on any guests outside after midnight. Liability issues. Plus something felt off about this guy. "Sir?" I called out as I pushed through the front door. The wind hit me hard, cold enough to make my eyes water. "Sir, the lakefront is closed after dark." He kept walking, heading straight for the water's edge. I jogged to catch up, boots crunching on frost-covered grass. The beam of my flashlight bounced off his back but seemed dimmer than usual, like the light couldn't quite reach him. "Hey, you need to come back inside." 20 feet behind him now, close enough to see more details of his clothes. The suit wasn't just old-fashioned. It looked like something from a black and white movie. The fabric had a weird sheen to it, almost translucent in my flashlight beam. He reached the wooden boardwalk that runs along the lakeshore. His shoes made no sound on the planks. Mine thundered with each step. "Stop right there." I was running now, closing the gap, 10 feet away. The man paused at the very edge of the boardwalk. Slowly, he turned his head to look back at me. My flashlight beam went right through him. I mean that literally. I could see the lake through his body, like he was made of smoke or dirty glass. His face, Jesus, his face. Pale as milk except for dark hollows where his eyes should have been. My legs locked up. The flashlight slipped from my numb fingers and clattered on the boardwalk. The man's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing nothing but blackness inside. Then he stepped forward. Not onto the water, into it. Like walking through a doorway. No splash, no ripples. 1 second he was there. The next, he had vanished completely. I stood frozen for maybe 5 minutes, staring at the spot where he'd disappeared. The wind died down. The lake went flat as glass, my chest hurt, and I realized I'd been holding my breath. Finally, training and procedure kicked in. I retrieved my flashlight with shaking hands and swept the beam across the water's surface. Nothing but small waves lapping at the pylons. I checked the boardwalk and surrounding shore for footprints. Only mine were visible in the frost. Back inside, I pulled up the guest registry on the computer. Clicked through every check-in for the past week. No single male guests besides the businessman in 204, who I'd seen heading up to his room hours ago with his laptop bag. I opened the emergency procedures manual. Nothing about ghost sightings. Typical. My hands were still trembling as I picked up the phone to call Jerry, the hotel manager. It rang 6 times before going to voicemail. "Hey Jerry, it's Mark at the front desk. Sorry to call so late, but, something weird just happened. Can you call me back when you get this? It's kind of important." I spent the next hour going through security footage, but the cameras only covered the parking lot and back entrance. Nothing showing the lakefront where I'd seen whatever I'd seen. Around 3 a.m., I started digging through the resort's old files. Most were digitized now, but we kept paper records going back to the 1930s in a storage room behind the front desk. Yellowed ledgers and guest books filled with elegant handwriting. I'm not sure what made me check October specifically, just a hunch. Flipping through decade after decade of October guest lists. Nothing jumped out until I hit 1943. The handwriting was different in that book. Messier, like whoever was recording guests was in a hurry, or upset about something. And there on the page for October 12, 1943, exactly 81 years ago, was an entry that made my blood run cold. Mr. James Harrison, room 127. Note, guest failed to check out. Personal effects found in room. Police report filed. I pulled out my phone and Googled Lakeside Resort Harrison, 1943. The third result was a newspaper article from the local paper's online archives. Businessman's disappearance baffles police. October 14, 1943. Local authorities are investigating the mysterious disappearance of James Harrison, 47, from the Lakeside Resort. Harrison, a traveling salesman from Chicago, was last seen by hotel staff late Tuesday evening. His room was found undisturbed Wednesday morning, containing his luggage and other belongings, including his wallet and identification. A resort employee reported seeing Harrison walking near the lake around midnight, but extensive searches of the grounds and water have yielded no clues to his whereabouts. The rest of the article was behind a paywall, but I'd seen enough. I searched through more recent newspapers next. Every few years, there would be another article, another sighting. Always in October, always late at night. A man in a 1940 suit walking toward the lake. The sun was coming up by the time Jerry called back. "Mark, got your message. What's so important it couldn't wait until morning?" I told him everything. The man in the suit, the way he vanished into the lake, the old guest records, the newspaper articles. Jerry was quiet for a long time after I finished. "How long you been working here, Mark?" 8 months. "Then you wouldn't know about the others. Night staff who've seen him. We don't exactly advertise it, bad for business. But it happens every few years. Always the same description. Always October 12th. Why didn't anyone tell me? Would you have believed it if we had? Look, your shift's almost over. Go home, get some sleep. We can talk more about this tomorrow." "What happened to him? Harrison? Did they ever find out?" Another long pause. "Police dragged the lake back in 43. Found nothing. But there were rumors. Stories about gambling debts. Chicago mob connections. The kind of thing that got people disappeared back then. Nothing was ever proven. I looked out the lobby windows at the lake. The surface was pink with dawn light. Peaceful. Normal. What do I do if he comes back? He won't. Not until next October 12th. But if you're still working nights, then just let him be. He's never hurt anyone. Just walking the same path over and over. Looking for something or trying to tell us something. Who knows? I think I need a drink. Go home, Mark. Get some rest. And welcome to the club. Not everyone gets to see him. Consider yourself special." I hung up and gathered my things to leave. The day shift person would be here soon. As I waited, I kept glancing at the lake through the windows. The sun was fully up now, turning the water golden. Hard to believe what I'd seen just hours ago. A family came down for breakfast, the ones from 318. The kids pressed their faces against the lobby windows, pointing at ducks swimming near the shore. Their mother called them to the dining room. Normal tourist stuff, normal morning. But I knew I'd be back tonight, and tomorrow night, and every night until I figured out what really happened to James Harrison, what he was trying to tell us. why he kept returning to walk that same path to the lake. The front door chimed as the day shift person walked in. Time to go home. But as I drove away, I couldn't shake the image of that face turning to look at me. Those dark, empty eyes. That black void of a mouth. And I wondered, what if he's not trying to tell us something? What if he's warning us? Warning us about whatever's waiting in the lake. Whatever took him on that October night 81 years ago. I guess I'll find out. October 12th comes around every year. And now I know what to watch for. But next time I'm bringing a camera that works, and I'm not letting him reach the water. I have questions for James Harrison, and I think he has answers, whether I want to hear them or not. The clicking of keys broke the silence at 11:47 p.m. I checked my watch twice. Working the late shift at Morton Library meant getting used to empty rooms and shadows, but something about that sound made my skin tighten. I sat at the main desk, processing overdue notices. The library was deserted, not unusual for a Wednesday night this close to midnight. Most students had cleared out hours ago. The sound came again. Click, click, click. Then a pause. More clicking. My first thought was that someone had snuck in. It happened sometimes, students trying to finish papers after closing. I grabbed my phone and flashlight, standing up from the desk. The clicking continued, coming from the computer area in the back. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I walked past the reference section. Row after row of books stretched into darkness on both sides. My footsteps echoed on the linoleum floor. The clicking got louder. I rounded the corner to the computer lab. 20 monitors lined the walls, all dark except one. Screen number 14 was on, its blue light pulsing in the darkness. The keyboard rattled like someone was typing at high speed, but no one sat in the chair. I froze. The clicking continued for 3 more seconds, then stopped. The cursor on the screen blinked steadily. My throat went dry. Hello? My voice came out as a croak. Libraries closed. No response. Just the hum of the computers and that blinking cursor. I stepped closer, scanning the room. All the chairs were pushed in except at Station 14. That chair was pulled out, angled like someone had just gotten up. The screen showed a blank Word document. As I watched, letters began appearing. I need more time. My hands started shaking. I gripped the flashlight tighter, its beam dancing across the empty chairs. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Who's there? I called out louder. This isn't funny. Show yourself or I'm calling campus security. More typing. Please. Just a few more minutes. I have to finish. The cursor blinked, waiting. I backed away, fumbling for my phone. My fingers felt numb as I tried to unlock it. The chair at Station 14 swiveled slightly as if someone had shifted position. A few papers on the desk rustled. No breeze. No air conditioning running. I managed to get my phone open and pulled up the security number. Before I could dial, the typing started again, faster now. Don't call them. They'll make me leave. I have to finish my thesis. The deadline was today. Please. My back hit the wall. The phone slipped from my sweaty hand, clattering on the floor. The sound echoed through the empty room. What are you? I whispered. The typing paused. Then, slowly, I'm not sure anymore. I was here working. Then everything went dark. When I woke up, no one could see me. But I have to finish. Dr. Roberts needs this by midnight. I picked up my phone with trembling fingers. The screen showed 11:52 p.m. That was today? I asked. What's today's date to you? April 15th. My stomach dropped. That was 3 months ago. The cursor blinked for several long seconds, then, no, that's impossible. I just sat down to work an hour ago. I only needed a little more time. I swallowed hard. What's your name? Michael Chen. I'm a doctoral candidate in medieval literature. Please, just let me finish. I'm so close. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd seen it in the campus newspaper. Michael Chen, 28, found dead in the library computer lab. Heart attack, they said. Stress and exhaustion from finishing his dissertation. Michael, I said softly, you did finish. They found your thesis on this computer. Dr. Roberts approved it posthumously. You got your doctorate. The cursor froze mid-line. The air grew colder, my breath coming out in visible puffs now. The papers on the desk scattered suddenly, as if swept by an angry hand. You're lying. I have to finish. The keyboard clattered violently. Every monitor in the lab flickered to life, screens filling with random text. Papers whirled through the air. The temperature plunged. Michael, stop. Listen to me. I pressed against the wall, heart pounding. You finished it. You did. But you pushed yourself too hard. Your heart gave out right here at this computer. I'm sorry, but you're... No. The word appeared on every screen simultaneously. The lights in the lab exploded in a shower of sparks. I ducked, covering my head as glass rained down. In the darkness, the screens glowed eerily. Through the blue light, I saw a shape forming in the chair at Station 14. Transparent at first, then more solid. A young Asian man in glasses and a rumpled sweater. Dark circles under his eyes. Expression desperate. He looked at me, through me. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. His hands hovered over the keyboard, trembling. It's okay, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. You finished your work. You can rest now. He shook his head violently. His fingers started typing again, but the screens showed only gibberish now. His form flickered like bad reception. I forced myself to step forward, despite every instinct screaming to run. Michael, your thesis was brilliant. Dr. Roberts said it was one of the best he'd ever read. You did it. You earned your doctorate. But now you need to let go. His typing slowed. He looked at the screen, then at his hands, which were growing more transparent by the second. I... finished? The words appeared faintly. Yes, you finished. It's done. He turned to me again. This time I saw tears on his fading face. His hands dropped from the keyboard. The last words appeared on the screen. Thank you. I can rest now. His form dissolved like smoke. The monitors went dark one by one. The temperature began to rise. Papers drifted to the floor in the sudden stillness. My phone showed 11:59 p.m. I stood there shaking, staring at the empty chair. After several minutes, I walked to Station 14 on unsteady legs. The Word document was still open. At the top, it showed Medieval Representations of Death and Transcendence in 12th Century Literatura by Michael Chen, April 15th, 2024. The cursor blinked once more, then the screen went dark. I called campus security after that, reported a power surge in the computer lab. They sent someone to clean up the broken glass. I didn't mention the rest, but I requested a transfer to the day shift. I couldn't handle another night alone in the library. Sometimes when I walk past the computer lab, I still hear faint clicking, and Station 14 remains dark no matter how many times they replace the monitor. I think about Michael often, about how dedication can become obsession, how some people pour their whole lives into their work until there's nothing left, until they become ghosts before they even die. They gave his parents his diploma at a private ceremony. Dr. Roberts said Michael's thesis would be published in an academic journal. Groundbreaking work on medieval views of the afterlife. I wonder if he knows, if he finally found peace, or if some part of him is still here, haunting the library, trying to perfect one last sentence, one final revision. I don't work late anymore, but sometimes passing by at night I see a blue glow from the computer lab windows, the light of a single screen, burning in the darkness. And if I listen closely, I hear the sound of keys clicking, typing words that will never be read. The footsteps started 3 weeks ago. Heavy steps directly above my bedroom, back and forth, night after night. At first I thought nothing of it. New neighbor moving in, maybe unpacking late at night. But when I asked Jim, our building's doorman, He told me no one lived up there. The apartment had been empty since October. I live on the 7th floor of the Morrison, an aging brick apartment building in downtown Seattle. My job at the tech startup keeps me up late most nights, coding until my eyes burn. I'm used to the city sounds, traffic, distant sirens, the hum of the heating system. But these footsteps are different. They're inside, above me, where no one should be. That first night, I barely noticed them. My headphones were on, music playing while I debugged a particularly nasty piece of code. Around 2 a.m., during a pause between songs, I heard it, the distinct sound of someone walking overhead. Step, step, pause, step, step, pause. A steady rhythm like someone pacing. I pulled off my headphones and listened. The steps continued for another minute, then stopped. I shrugged it off. Big building, sounds carry. Probably someone in another unit. The next night, same thing. This time I noticed the footsteps started at exactly 1:47 a.m. They followed the same pattern. Heavy steps crossing what I knew was the upstairs bedroom, pausing, then crossing back. After exactly 7 minutes, they stopped. That's when I asked Jim about the upstairs neighbor. He'd been the doorman at the Morrison for 12 years, knew everyone in the building. 807? He checked his tablet. Been empty since the Hendersons moved out in October. Owner's trying to sell it, but you know the market right now. I felt a chill run down my spine. You're sure? No one's moved in recently? Positive. I'd know. I'm here every day from 4 to midnight. Haven't seen anyone go up there except the realtor showing it maybe twice last month. I went back to my apartment and pulled up the building's floor plan on my phone. Unit 807 was directly above mine. Identical layout. I knew the bedroom was right above mine because I'd looked at that unit before renting 707. Same square footage, same view of the brick wall of the next building over. The footsteps came again that night. 1:47 a.m. exactly. I stood on my bed and pressed my ear to the ceiling. The steps were clearer now, definitely someone wearing shoes, probably men's dress shoes from the sound. Hard soles on hardwood floors. I recorded them on my phone, played it back the next morning, clear as day. Heavy footsteps, regular rhythm, 7 minutes long. That afternoon, I caught the realtor showing the unit. Sarah Chen, according to her business card. Professional smile, blazer, tablet full of property listings. Mind if I take a look? I asked. I'm in 707, been thinking about upgrading. She was happy to show me. The apartment was empty, dust sheets covering the few remaining pieces of furniture. Everything else had been cleared out when the Hendersons left. I walked the bedroom, testing the floors. They creaked under my feet, old building, settling foundations. But the sound wasn't the same as what I heard at night. These were normal creaks, not the deliberate footsteps I recorded. Any interest from buyers? I asked casually. A few showings, but nothing serious yet. She pulled up the listing details. Been on the market 127 days. Might need to adjust the price again. I checked the closets, the bathroom, every corner. No signs of squatters or break-ins. The windows were sealed, alarm system active. The only way in was through the front door, and Jim would have seen anyone coming or going. That night, I waited. Laptop open, coffee brewing, eyes on the clock. 1:46 a.m. My heart rate picked up. 1:47 a.m. The footsteps began. I grabbed my phone and hit record. Step, step, pause. Step, step, pause. Exactly like before. I pressed my hand against the ceiling. No vibration, despite the clear sound of heavy steps above. My mouth went dry. The coffee turned sour in my stomach. I ran downstairs to the lobby. The night doorman, Mike, was doing his crossword puzzle. Anyone go up to 807 tonight? He checked the security log. Nope. No one's been up there all day. Why? I played him the recording. His face changed. That's coming from up there? Right now? We took the elevator to the 8th floor. The hallway was silent. Emergency lights casting a pale glow. Unit 807's door was locked. Security system armed. Mike used his master key. The apartment was empty, dark, silent, no footsteps, no movement, no sign anyone had been there. We checked every room, closet, corner. Nothing. But when we went back to my apartment, the footsteps were still going, clear as ever, crossing back and forth above my bedroom. I started keeping a log. Every night, 1:47 a.m. exactly. 7 minutes of footsteps, always the same pattern, always stopping at 1:54 a.m. I mapped the path, bedroom door to window, pause, back to door, pause, repeat. I installed a ceiling-mounted security camera. The footage showed nothing, just my empty bedroom. But the audio picked up the footsteps, clear as day. I talked to other residents on the 8th floor. Mrs. Rodriguez in 808 never heard anything. Mr. Patel in 806 said sometimes late at night he thought he heard something, but assumed it was from my apartment below. The lack of sleep started getting to me. Dark circles under my eyes, jumping at small noises. My code got sloppy. 3 failed commits in 1 week. My team lead noticed. "Everything okay, Dave? You seem a bit off lately." I couldn't tell him I was staying up until 2 a.m. every night recording ghost footsteps. He'd think I was losing it. Maybe I was. I researched the building's history. Built in 1927, converted to apartments in the 1980s. No reported deaths in Unit 807, no tragic accidents, no famous former residents. The Hendersons had lived there 5 years before moving to Chicago for work. Before them, a rotating cast of young professionals, none staying more than a year or two. I talked to Jim again, asked about the Hendersons. "Nice couple," he said. "Quiet, kept to themselves. He worked in finance. She was a teacher, I think. Never had any complaints about them." "Did they ever mention noise issues? Anything strange about the apartment?" Jim thought for a moment. "Don't think so. Though now that you mention it, Mrs. Henderson did ask me once about footsteps. Said she heard them coming from below. Thought it was someone exercising late at night. But that was before you moved in. Place was empty then." My hands started shaking. She heard footsteps too, from below? That's what she said. But like I told her, probably just building noises. These old places, they make all kinds of sounds. I started sleeping on my couch as far from the bedroom as possible, but I could still hear them, fainter, but there. Step, step, pause, step, step, pause. One night, I'd had enough. At 1:46 a.m., I stood in my bedroom, phone recording, staring at the ceiling. "Who's there?" I shouted. "What do you want?" The footsteps started right on schedule. I kept shouting, "I can hear you, show yourself." Step, step, pause. "This is my home, leave me alone." Step, step, pause. My voice cracked. Sweat ran down my back despite the cold. "Please, just stop." Step, step, pause. 7 minutes, then silence. I called in sick the next day, spent hours going through building records at the city archives. Construction permits, renovation history, old photos. Nothing unusual, just a typical pre-war apartment building, slowly aging, changing hands, adapting to the times. But I did find something interesting: the original floor plans. Before the 1980s conversion, the 7th and 8th floors had been a single 2-story unit, a private penthouse suite. The bedroom above mine had been part of the same living space. I dug deeper. The penthouse's last occupant was Robert Morton, the building's original owner. He died in 1979, prompting the conversion to separate apartments. Heart attack, according to the obituary. He was known for working late into the night, pacing as he dictated letters to his secretary. The article mentioned his habit of walking the penthouse in his signature dress shoes, thinking through business decisions. Always at night, always following the same path. I took the obituary to Jim. "Yeah, that tracks," he said. "Old-timers who've been here forever talk about Morton. Guy was a workaholic, barely slept. Used to hear him pacing overhead at all hours." "What time did he usually walk?" Jim shrugged. "Don't know exactly. Late, though." "Why?" I showed him my log. Every night, 1:47 a.m. to 1:54 a.m. Interesting coincidence, he said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. That night, I waited again. 1:47 a.m. The footsteps began. I closed my eyes, listening to the rhythm. Step, step, pause. A businessman pacing, thinking through problems, wearing down the floors night after night, even after the penthouse was split, even after death, keeping to his schedule. I thought about moving, breaking my lease, finding a new place. But something kept me here. Not curiosity exactly. More like acceptance. The footsteps became part of my routine. Wake up, go to work, come home, code until late, wait for the footsteps, try to sleep. They were still unsettling, but in a familiar way, like living next to train tracks or a busy street. You never quite get used to it, but it becomes normal. I stopped recording them, stopped checking the security camera, stopped searching for explanations. Some nights, when I'm stuck on a difficult problem, I find myself pacing my bedroom. Step, step, pause. Following the same path as the footsteps above. Thinking through solutions, working things out in my head. At 1:47 a.m., I hear the footsteps start. My pacer, my upstairs neighbor, who isn't there. We walk together, separated by time and space, and a layer of ceiling, both lost in our own thoughts. 7 minutes later, he stops. I usually keep going for a while longer. I wonder sometimes if, years from now, someone will move into Unit 707 and hear two sets of footsteps from above. A man in dress shoes from the 1970s, and another in sock feet from the 2020s, both pacing through their problems in the night. But I try not to think about that too much. I just listen for the footsteps each night, right on schedule. Step, step, pause. Step, step, pause. Until 1:54 a.m., when the echo from upstairs fades back into the past, leaving me alone with my own thoughts and my own steps in the darkness. My hands still shake when I think about what happened last October. I've told the police everything, but they just take notes and give me that look. You know the one, like they're humoring a crazy person. But I know what I saw. I have to tell this story, even if no one believes me. I work at Sterling Insurance downtown. Every morning for the past 2 years, I'd park in the same spot, walk past the same hot dog cart, and watch the construction site next door grow floor by floor. They were building some fancy high-rise apartment complex, just another glass and steel monster eating up the skyline. October 12th started like any other Tuesday. I got my coffee from Jerry's cart, nodded to the security guard, and glanced at the construction site. That's when I first saw him. He stood out because he wasn't doing anything. All the other workers were moving, lifting, shouting orders. But this guy just stood there, staring right at me. He wore a yellow hard hat and an orange safety vest like all the others, but something about him seemed off. His clothes looked too clean, too new. No dust or dirt, no wear and tear. He raised his hand slowly and waved. Not a normal hey there wave. His movements were jerky, desperate, like someone trying to signal for help without being noticed. I stopped walking. He pressed his palm against his throat, then pointed up toward the 20th floor. His eyes never left mine. I felt the coffee cup slip from my hand, but I couldn't move to catch it. The hot liquid splashed across my shoes. When I looked back up, he was gone. I told myself I was being stupid. Construction sites are busy places. People come and go all the time. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That night, I barely slept. The image of his face kept appearing in my mind, pale, drawn, with dark circles under his eyes. The next morning, I got to work early. I waited by Jerry's cart watching the workers arrive. The site supervisor showed up at 6:30, a big guy named Mike who always bought 2 hot dogs for lunch. I'd chatted with him a few times. "Hey Mike," I called out. "Quick question for you." He walked over, travel mug in hand. "What's up?" That worker who was on site yesterday, yellow hat, orange vest, kind of pale, he was standing near the entrance around 8:30. Mike's forehead wrinkled. Lots of guys wear yellow hats and orange vests, that's standard gear. This one was different. He wasn't working, just standing there. Clean clothes, no dirt, waving kind of strange. Clean clothes? Mike laughed. Not on my site. Place is nothing but dust and mud. Everyone's filthy by 9 a.m. Could he have been new? Nah, haven't hired anyone new in weeks. Got a full crew right now. He took a sip of coffee. You sure about the time? Site doesn't open until 7. No one would have been there at 8:30 just standing around. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I see guys working there all the time when I come in. Early crew starts at 7, main crew at 8. By 8:30 everyone's busy as hell. No one has time to stand around waving. He checked his watch. Speaking of which, gotta run. Safety meeting in 10. I watched him walk away, my coffee getting cold in my hand. I knew what I'd seen. The man had been right there, less than 20 feet from me. And that wave, that wasn't someone being friendly. That was someone trying to send a message. During lunch, I walked around the perimeter of the construction site. The fence had signs everywhere. Authorized personnel only, and hard hat area, and violators will be prosecuted. I studied each worker I could see, but none of them matched the man from yesterday. That night, I stayed late at the office. Most people had gone home, leaving just the cleaning crew and a few other workaholics. Around 8 p.m., I stood at my window, looking down at the construction site. The floodlights cast harsh shadows across the skeletal structure. Movement caught my eye. 20 floors up, a figure stood at the edge of an unfinished floor. Yellow hard hat, orange vest. Even from this distance, I could tell the clothes were clean. He raised his hand in that same jerky wave. I pressed against the glass, heart pounding. The figure pointed to his throat again, then up toward the roof. He took a step closer to the edge. "Hey!" I shouted, knowing he couldn't hear me. "Don't!" He disappeared into the darkness. I ran to the elevator, jabbing the button repeatedly. When it finally arrived, I took it to the ground floor and sprinted outside. The night guard called after me, but I ignored him. I ran to the construction site entrance, expecting to see a crowd, ambulances, something. But there was nothing. Just empty streets and the quiet hum of the city. The gate was locked with a heavy chain. I rattled it anyway, earning a shout from the site's night watchman. "Hey, no trespassing." I explained what I'd seen, the worker, the wave, how he'd vanished. The guard just shook his head. "Nobody's up there, buddy. Place is empty after 6. Besides, we got cameras everywhere. They'd show if anyone was fooling around up high." "Check them," I insisted. "Please, just check the footage." He radioed his supervisor, probably to humor me. While we waited, I stared up at the building. The floodlights created strange patterns, making shadows move where there shouldn't be movement. The supervisor arrived 15 minutes later. They reviewed the cameras right there on a tablet. Nothing. No worker. No wave. No figure at the edge. "Cameras don't lie," the supervisor said. "Place is secure. No one's been up there." I didn't sleep at all that night. I sat at my computer, searching news archives for construction accidents at the site. Nothing recent. A few minor injuries over the past year, all properly reported and handled. No deaths, no disappearances. The next morning, I got to work early again. Mike was already there, talking to a group of workers. I waited until they dispersed. "Mike, I need to ask you something else about that worker." He sighed. "Look, man, I told you. Just listen, please. Has anyone ever died on this site? Any accidents that maybe didn't make the news?" His face hardened. "We run a clean operation here. Everything by the book. All accidents get reported, no matter how small." "What about before you started, when they were first breaking ground?" "That was before my time. But I would have heard if anything bad happened. Construction workers talk. We look out for each other." I pulled out my phone and showed him a quick sketch I'd made. A basic face, nothing fancy. "This is what he looked like. Does it ring any bells?" Mike studied the picture, then shook his head. "Never seen him. Look, you seem like a nice guy. But maybe you should talk to someone. You know, professionally. Construction sites can play tricks on your eyes. shadows, movement, that sort of thing. I wanted to argue, but what could I say? I had no proof, no evidence, just my word against security cameras and a whole crew who'd never seen the man. For the next week, I watched the site constantly. I changed my schedule, arriving at different times. I stayed late watching from my window. The pale man never appeared during the day, but 3 more times I saw him at night, always up high, always with that same desperate wave, always pointing to his throat, then up. I started researching the building's history. Before construction began, the lot had been empty for decades. Before that, it was a warehouse that burned down in the 70s. No deaths reported in the fire, nothing suspicious. The lack of information made me dig deeper. I requested old city records, building permits, anything I could find. Most of it was mundane stuff. Zoning changes, environmental impact studies, architectural plans. Then I found something in a microfiche of a local newspaper from 1974. A small article, barely a paragraph. Construction halted after worker complaint. It mentioned someone raising concerns about unsafe conditions at the warehouse. The worker's name wasn't given. The only detail was that he'd complained about strange noises from the upper floor. He disappeared 3 days later. Police suspected he'd simply left town. The date of his disappearance? October 12th. Last night I saw the pale man again. This time he was on the roof. The building's almost finished now, just interior work left. He stood at the very edge, waving, but this time he pointed down instead of up. Down at a specific spot near the building's foundation. I've written all this down because I'm going to that spot tonight. I've got a shovel in my car. The night watchman changes shifts at 2 a.m. There's a 15-minute gap in coverage. That should be enough time to start digging. Maybe I'll find nothing. Maybe I'm crazy seeing things that aren't there. But I have to know. Because every time I close my eyes, I see that wave. That desperate, jerky wave of a man trying to tell someone, anyone, what happened to him. If I don't come back, show this to the police. Tell them to dig. Tell them to look for a yellow hard hat and an orange vest that's too clean, too new. Tell them to look for the man who tried to warn people about the warehouse, who disappeared on October 12, 1974. Tell them to look for the worker who's still trying to be found. I have to go now. It's almost 2 a.m. The shovel feels heavy in my hands, but not as heavy as the truth I might uncover. I've never told anyone this story before. Not my wife, not my therapist, not even my closest friends. But it's been eating at me for 15 years now, and I need to get it out. Maybe then I'll stop having the dreams. Maybe then I'll stop hearing that voice when I'm alone at night. I was 23 when it happened. My friends and I went camping at Lake Morrison State Park in northern Michigan. There were 4 of us, me, Dan, Mike, and Steve. We'd been going there since high school, always to the same remote campsite about 2 miles off the main trail. It was our thing, our annual escape from real life. That year we arrived on a Friday afternoon in late September. The air was crisp, leaves crunching under our boots as we hiked in. We set up our tents in the small clearing, got the fire going, and spent the evening drinking beer and telling the same old stories we always did. Normal stuff. Steve burned the hot dogs like he always did. Mike complained about his job. Dan fell asleep in his camp chair. Around midnight, everyone turned in. I stayed up to bank the fire and have one last beer. The woods were dead quiet except for the occasional pop from the dying embers. No wind, no crickets, just silence. That's when I heard it. James. Just my name, whispered so softly I almost missed it. It came from the trees behind my tent, maybe 50 feet into the darkness. I froze, beer halfway to my mouth. My first thought was one of the guys was messing with me, but I could hear Dan snoring from his tent. Through the mesh windows of the other tents, I saw Mike's headlamp moving as he read his book, and Steve was clearly passed out, arm hanging out his tent door. James. There it was again. A woman's voice, soft, gentle, almost pleasant. if it hadn't been coming from pitch darkness in the middle of nowhere. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I clicked on my flashlight and swept the beam across the tree line. Nothing but black trunks and shadows. The light didn't penetrate more than 20 feet into the forest. "James, come here." My hands started shaking. The voice was closer now, maybe 30 feet away. I could hear leaves crunching like something was moving toward the clearing. But my flashlight beam showed nothing. I stood up, nearly knocking over my chair. The crunching stopped. My breathing sounded too loud in my ears. "I've been waiting for you, James." 20 feet away now. The voice was still soft, still gentle, but there was something wrong about it. Something that made my skin crawl. It sounded almost like someone trying to imitate a woman's voice but not quite getting it right. I backed toward Dan's tent. "Dan," I whispered. "Dan, wake up." He kept snoring. I reached for the tent zipper. "Don't wake them, James. This is just for you." 10 feet away. I spun around, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. For a split second, I thought I saw something. A pale shape, about human height, moving between two trees, but it was gone before I could focus on it. I dove into Dan's tent and shook him hard. "Dan, wake up!" He groaned and rolled over. "What the hell, man? There's someone out there." "You're drunk. Go to sleep." "I'm serious. Listen." We sat in silence for what felt like hours but was probably only a minute. Nothing. No voice, no footsteps. Just the normal sounds of the forest at night. Dan shoved me toward the tent door. "You're hearing things. Get some sleep." I crawled out of his tent, feeling stupid. Maybe I was drunk. Maybe it was just my imagination. I walked back to the fire pit, grabbed my beer, and headed for my own tent. That's when I saw it. In the dirt next to my tent were footprints. They looked almost human, but too long, too narrow. The toes were wrong, too spread out like fingers. They led from the forest to where I'd been sitting, then disappeared back into the trees. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my tent with my flashlight and my pocket knife listening. The voice didn't come back, but twice I heard something moving around the campsite. Heavy footsteps, deliberately slow, circling our tents. When the sun finally came up, I was a wreck. The others gave me shit about looking hungover, but I didn't tell them what happened. The footprints were gone, filled in with fresh dirt like they'd never been there. We packed up and hiked out that afternoon. I told them I wasn't feeling well, and nobody argued about cutting the trip short. As we walked back to the cars, I felt eyes on me the entire time. Every time I looked over my shoulder, the trail behind us was empty. I didn't go camping again for 5 years. The others kept up the tradition, but I always had an excuse. Work, family obligations, whatever it took to avoid those woods. Then Dan got married, and he wanted to do one last camping trip before the wedding. Just like old times, he said. I couldn't say no without explaining why, and I still couldn't bring myself to tell them what happened. They'd think I was crazy. So I went. Same campsite, same routine. But this time I made sure to bring sleeping pills. That night, after everyone went to bed, I took 2 pills and zipped myself into my tent. I was almost asleep when I heard it. "I missed you, James." My body went cold. The voice was right outside my tent. 5 years is a long time to wait. Something pressed against the tent wall. A hand, but the fingers were too long. The joints bent wrong. The fabric dimpled inward, tracing the shape of those impossible fingers. I couldn't move. The sleeping pills had made my body heavy, my thoughts slow. All I could do was lie there and watch as those fingers moved across the tent wall, inches from my face. "Next time, James. Next time you'll come with me." The hand withdrew. I heard footsteps moving away, then silence. In the morning, there were 5 long tears in the tent wall, but only on the inside. The outer layer was untouched. Nobody else saw them. When I showed Mike, the tears were gone, the fabric perfect and unmarked. That was 10 years ago. I haven't been back to Lake Morrison since then, but I dream about it almost every week. In the dreams, I'm sitting by the fire and I hear the voice. But in the dreams, I always get up. I always follow it into the trees. I always want to see what happens next. But I wake up before I do. Last week, Dan called. He's planning a reunion camping trip. For old time's sake, he said. Same spot. You have to come. We're not taking no for an answer this time. I haven't given him an answer yet, but last night, as I was falling asleep, I heard it. Just a whisper, so faint I almost convinced myself I imagined it. It's time, James. My name is on the camping permit for next weekend. The spot is reserved. My old tent is clean and patched. My sleeping bag is rolled up by the door. I still don't know if I'm going. But sometimes late at night I find myself wondering, what would happen if I went? What would happen if, this time, when I heard the voice, I answered? What would happen if I followed it into the trees? Part of me hopes I never find out, but a bigger part of me knows I will. Because after 15 years, I finally understand something. It wasn't trying to lure me into the forest that first night. It was inviting me home. I'm writing this down now because I need someone to know what happened, what's still happening. If you're reading this, and I've gone missing up at Lake Morrison, don't bother looking for me. Don't bother with search parties or rescue dogs or any of that. Just listen for a voice in the trees. A man's voice now, not a woman's. And if you hear it calling your name, do what I should have done 15 years ago. Run. The cops didn't believe me when I told them about the woman in the window. They checked the house and found nothing but dust and empty rooms. I know what I saw. I know she waved at me. And I know why that house has been empty for 7 years. I work late shifts at Joe's Auto Body on Madison Street. Every night at 11:30, I walk home down Oak Avenue. It's a quiet neighborhood. Old houses, tall trees, not much traffic. The kind of place where nothing ever happens. Until it does. I first noticed the light 6 months ago. Third floor window of the old Victorian at 247 Oak. Yellow glow like from a desk lamp. Same time every night. At first I didn't think much of it. Just another porch light or maybe someone working late. Then I started seeing the shadow. A woman's figure always standing in the same spot. Perfectly still. Just watching the street. I figured it was probably someone with insomnia or a night owl who liked looking out at the quiet street. 2 weeks ago, everything changed. I was walking home like usual, hands in my pockets against the October chill. The light was on in the window, like always. The shadow was there too. But this time, something felt different. I stopped on the sidewalk and looked up. The shadow moved. Not the usual slight movements you might see from someone shifting their weight. This was deliberate. The figure raised its arm and waved. Slow. Purposeful. Like it had been waiting for me to notice. My stomach dropped. Sweat broke out on my forehead despite the cold. I stood there frozen, staring up at the window. The figure waved again. Then it pressed its hand against the glass. I ran the rest of the way home. Didn't sleep that night. Kept seeing that hand pressed against the window. The next morning I went back. The house looked different in daylight. Paint peeling off the Victorian trim. Overgrown yard. Windows dirty and dark. No sign anyone had been there in years. I knocked on the neighbor's door. Mrs. Peterson answered, a tiny woman in her 70s who'd lived on the street for decades. That house, she said when I asked. Been empty since the Williams family moved out. 7 years now, must be. But I saw someone in the window last night, I said. A woman. Mrs. Peterson's face changed. You saw her too? She invited me in for coffee. Her living room was cluttered with family photos and ceramic cats. She sat me down on a worn floral couch and told me about Sarah Williams. Lovely family, the Williams. Tom was a lawyer. Sarah stayed home with their daughter Emma. Such a sweet girl. Used to sell Girl Scout cookies door to door. Mrs. Peterson's hand shook as she poured the coffee. What happened to them? Car accident. Tom and Emma were killed instantly. Sarah, she couldn't handle it. Spent all her time in Emma's room on the 3rd floor just staring out the window. Waiting for them to come home, I think. Mrs. Peterson paused. She killed herself up there, hanging. The realtor found her when he came to show the house. I felt sick. When was this? 7 years ago next month. House has been empty ever since. No one will buy it, knowing what happened. I called in sick to work that night. Couldn't face walking past that house in the dark. But the next night, I had to go back. Had to know. The light was on. The figure stood at the window. This time, I stopped directly across the street. My hands were shaking so bad I had to stuff them in my pockets. "Sarah?" I called out. My voice sounded thin in the empty street. The figure moved, both hands pressed against the glass now. I could almost make out features through the dirty window. Long hair, a pale face. Then the light went out. I crossed the street. The front door was locked, but the back door's lock was old and loose. One hard shove with my shoulder and it gave way. The house smelled of dust and decay. My flashlight beam showed cobwebs in the corners, dead leaves on the floor. No footprints in the dust except mine. I climbed the stairs. They creaked under my weight. Second floor, empty rooms with sheets covering the furniture. More dust, more cobwebs. No sign anyone had been here in years. Third floor, one door at the end of the hall. Pink letters spelled out Emma in peeling paint. My hand shook as I turned the knob. The door swung open with a long creak. A girl's bedroom, frozen in time. Stuffed animals on the bed. Posters of horses on the walls. A desk by the window with a lamp. The lamp was on. I stepped into the room. The light cast my shadow on the wall. A dark figure standing exactly where I'd seen the woman night after night. Movement caught my eye. A flutter of curtains by the window. But there was no breeze. The temperature dropped. My breath came out in white clouds. The lamp flickered. Something touched my shoulder. Cold fingers. I spun around. A woman stood there. Long dark hair, pale face. Sad eyes. She wore a flowered dress, but I could see the wall through her body. "You came," she said. Her voice was like wind through dead leaves. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. She reached for me with translucent hands. "I've been so lonely," she whispered. "No one stops anymore. No one looks up. But you did." "I'm sorry," I stammered. "About your family." Her face changed. The sadness turned to something else, something hungry. "They're waiting for me," she said. "Down there." She pointed to the street below. "I see them every night. Tom and Emma standing on the sidewalk waving for me to join them. But I can't leave this room. Not alone." She moved closer. The cold was unbearable now. Ice crystals formed on my eyelashes. "Help me," she said. "Help me join them." Her hands locked around my wrists, strong, real. She pulled me toward the window. "Just a step," she whispered. "That's all it takes. We can go together." I saw them then, through the glass. A man and a little girl standing on the sidewalk looking up, both pale, both transparent, both waving. Her grip tightened. The window swung open. I ripped free, stumbled backward, ran for the door. Her scream followed me down the stairs. A sound of rage and despair that shook the whole house. I didn't stop running until I reached home. Locked every door and window. Sat up all night with all the lights on. The next day, I quit my job at the auto shop. Found new work across town. Moved to a different neighborhood. But sometimes when I can't sleep, I think about that house on Oak Avenue. About the light that still burns in the window every night. About Sarah Williams, standing there, watching, waiting. And I wonder how many others have seen her wave. How many have stopped to look up? How many have gone inside? How many have helped her take that final step? I drive past the house sometimes during the day. It's still empty, still falling apart. But every night that light burns in the third floor window. And sometimes if you look carefully, you might see 3 figures on the sidewalk. A man, a woman, and a little girl. All pale, all transparent. all waving to passing strangers, waiting for someone else to stop and look up. I don't walk at night anymore. I keep my blinds closed after dark, and if I ever see a light in a window, a shadow that seems to wave, I keep walking. I don't look up. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Some lights should stay undisturbed, and some waves should go unanswered. The house at 247 Oak Avenue is still there. The light still burns. Sarah still waits, but she'll have to wait alone. I won't be going back. Not ever. Even though sometimes late at night I hear knocking at my window, see a pale face peering in, feel cold fingers on my shoulder. She followed me home that night, and now she won't leave. She's still waiting, still watching, still waving. And one of these nights, I might wave back. The buzzing of my phone jolted me awake at 3:17 a.m. The screen lit up my dark bedroom with a harsh blue glow. A missed call notification showed a number I didn't recognize, 5535-0193. I stared at it for a few seconds, my heart racing from the sudden wake-up. No voicemail, no text. Just a missed call in the middle of the night. I put the phone back on my nightstand and tried to go back to sleep. The red numbers on my alarm clock blinked steadily. Minutes passed. My mind kept circling back to that call. Who would call at this hour? Wrong number, probably, but something about it bothered me. I got up at 7 a.m. after a restless night. The missed call notification was still there when I checked my phone over breakfast, black coffee and cold toast. I couldn't shake the nagging feeling about it. The number looked familiar somehow, like I should know it. At 9:30 a.m., sitting at my desk at work, I still couldn't focus. The spreadsheet on my computer screen blurred as I kept glancing at my phone. Finally, I picked it up and hit redial. It rang 3 times, then a click. Hello? The voice hit me like a punch to the gut. Deep, gravelly, and unmistakably familiar, but I couldn't place it. Hi, I got a missed call from this number last night, I said. A long pause. Static crackled on the line. David. The voice said my name. Not a question, a statement. Why aren't you here yet? My mouth went dry. I never told him my name. Who is this? My voice cracked. You know who this is, we're waiting. You should have been here by now. I hung up. My hands shook as I set the phone down. Sweat beaded on my forehead. The office suddenly felt too warm, too cramped. My coworker Sarah looked over from her desk. You okay? You look pale. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The phone sat on my desk like a live wire. After 5 minutes of staring at it, I picked it up again, hit redial, had to know. We're sorry, but the number you are trying to reach is not in service. Please check the number and try again. I pulled up the call history. The number was there, both the missed call from last night and my call from minutes ago. I tried again. We're sorry, but the number you are trying to reach is not in service. I called the phone company during my lunch break. Spent 40 minutes getting transferred between departments. I'm looking into a number that called me, 555-0193. I told the 5th customer service rep. One moment while I check that. Sir, that number isn't currently assigned to any customer in our system. Are you sure you have it right? Yes, I have the calls right here in my history. One at 3:17 a.m. and another at 9:36 a.m. today. I understand, sir, but that number doesn't exist in our records. It's not a valid number in our system. I thanked her and hung up. Sat at my desk the rest of the day, unable to focus. The voice kept echoing in my head. You know who this is. We're waiting. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time my phone buzzed with a text or notification, I jumped. At 3:17 a.m. I was still awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting. The phone stayed silent. The next day at work I tried the number again. Same recording about it not being in service. I wrote the number down on a sticky note and stuck it to my monitor. Something about those digits nagged at my memory. I spent my lunch break Googling the number. Nothing came up. I tried reverse lookup services. No results. The number didn't exist according to every database I could find. That night, I dug through old papers in my home office. Phone bills, contacts lists, anything that might jog my memory about why the number seemed familiar. Nothing. At 11 p.m., my landline rang. I never use it. Kept it mainly for emergencies. The caller ID showed unknown number. My hand hovered over the receiver. On the fourth ring, I picked up. Hello? David. That same deep voice. Time's running out. Who are you? What do you want? You know where to go, room 193, like always. The line went dead. Room 193. The number struck me like lightning. Memories flooded back, memories I'd buried years ago. July 1993. I was 16. My father had been sick for months. Cancer. That last night at the hospital, the nurse had called from room 193. You should come now, she'd said. He doesn't have much time. But I didn't go, couldn't face it. Stayed home instead, told myself I'd visit in the morning. He died at 3:17 a.m. The next day at work, I pulled up the hospital's website, found their directory. Room 193 was still there, still part of the oncology ward. That night, I drove to the hospital. Parked in the familiar visitor's lot. The building loomed against the dark sky, most windows dark except for a scattered few. One light burned on the first floor, room 193. My key card from all those years ago still hung on my keychain. I'd never been able to throw it out. The card reader beeped green when I swiped it. The oncology ward was quiet at this hour. My footsteps echoed on the linoleum. Room 193's door stood halfway open, warm light spilling into the hallway. I stopped in the doorway. The room looked exactly the same. Same mint green walls, same window overlooking the parking lot, same chair where I used to sit during visits. The bed was empty, sheets pulled tight and smooth. Hello? My voice shook. No answer. I stepped inside. The monitoring equipment was dark and silent, no signs of recent use. The whiteboard still had Patient Robert Wilson written in faded dry erase marker. My father's name. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The screen showed that number again, 555-0193. I answered. I'm here, I said. Finally. The voice was clearer now, closer. Turn around, son. I did. The room was empty. My phone showed call ended. When I tried to redial, the number was gone from my call history, like it never existed. I sank into the chair by the empty bed, sat there until sunrise, waiting for a call that never came. The next night at 3:17 a.m., my phone stayed silent, and every night after. But sometimes when I drive past the hospital, I look up at room 193's window. Some nights it's dark, some nights there's a light on, and some nights, if I look closely, I swear I see a figure standing there, holding what looks like a phone to its ear. I keep my old hospital key card, keep that sticky note with the number written on it, keep thinking maybe someday the phone will ring again. Maybe this time I'll be ready. Maybe this time I'll know what to say. But deep down I know the truth. That call came 25 years too late. Some missed calls you can never return. Some waiting rooms stay empty forever. Some conversations remain unfinished. Every year on the anniversary of that night, I sit by my phone at 3:17 a.m., just in case. The number never appears again. The voice never calls. But I remember what it said. Time's running out. It was right. Time ran out long ago in a hospital room I was too afraid to enter. Now all I have is a number that doesn't exist, a voice I'll never hear again, and the endless quiet of a phone that doesn't ring. Sometimes late at night I find myself punching in those numbers, 5555-0193. Always get the same recording. We're sorry, but the number you're trying to reach is not in service. I've memorized every word of that automated message. It's become a kind of ritual. Dial, listen, hang up, repeat. Each time hoping for something different. Each time knowing it won't change. The hospital renovated the oncology ward last year. Room 193 doesn't exist anymore. They renumbered everything, put in new floors, painted over those mint green walls. But in my mind, it's still there, still waiting. Just like that voice on the phone said, we're waiting. I keep thinking about that first missed call. If I'd answered at 3:17 a.m. instead of letting it go to voicemail. If I'd been braver that night at 16. If I'd gone to room 193 when the nurse called. If. But you can't return a call to the past. Can't reach through time and change what's already happened. All you can do is listen to the dial tone, hear the familiar recording, and wonder about the conversations that might have been. The phone company still insists the number never existed. My call history shows otherwise. Reality and memory blur like static on a bad connection. In the end, maybe it doesn't matter if the number was real. The voice was real enough. The room was real. The waiting was real. Some nights I dream about that hospital corridor, about walking toward room 193, phone in hand. In the dreams, I always answer when it rings. But I always wake up before I hear what the voice has to say. The sticky note with the number is still on my monitor at work. The ink has faded, but I know those digits by heart now. 5555-0193. A number that doesn't exist. A call that never came. A conversation forever unfinished. Time's running out. Always has been. Always will be. But still I wait. Still I listen. Still I remember that voice asking, "Why aren't you here yet?" And I have no answer. Never did. Never will. The rain started at 10 p.m. I wasn't supposed to work tonight. Johnson called in sick at the last minute, so here I am, stuck on the graveyard shift at Riverside Parking. 3 underground levels of concrete and fluorescent lights. I've done this job for 6 years. Nothing ever happens here. Tonight was different. The security office sits above ground level. 6 monitors show feeds from the cameras mounted throughout the garage. The night shift is easy. Watch the screens, do hourly walkthroughs, fill out the log. Most nights I read or play games on my phone between rounds. The rain drums against the windows. Water trickles down from somewhere in the ceiling, dripping into a bucket in the corner. Plunk, plunk, plunk. The sound gets on my nerves after a while. I check my watch. 1:15 a.m. Time for another walkthrough. I glance at the monitors before heading down. Level 1 is half full, mostly monthly permit holders who leave their cars overnight. Level 2 is nearly empty. Level 3 has just 3 cars scattered across the far end. Standard for a Tuesday night. Something moves on monitor 3. I lean closer to the screen. A dark shape slides between 2 cars on level 2. My hand freezes on the desk. The shape is gone as quickly as it appeared. Could be a glitch in the feed. These cameras are old. I rewind the footage. There, at 1:16:42. The shape passes from left to right, staying low to the ground. Too fast to make out any details. Too dark to be a person. Too solid to be a shadow cast by headlights. My throat feels tight. I grab my flashlight and radio. The weight of them in my hands is reassuring. Standard procedure is to investigate any unusual activity. I've done this hundreds of times, usually just teenagers trying to sneak in or homeless people looking for shelter. This feels different. The stairwell door clangs shut behind me. My footsteps echo off concrete walls. The emergency lights cast a sickly green glow. Level 1 is quiet. A few puddles have formed where water seeps through the ceiling. The air smells like wet asphalt and exhaust. Level 2 is darker. Half the fluorescent tubes are burnt out. Shadows pool in the corners. I sweep my flashlight beam across empty parking spaces. Nothing moves. The ventilation system hums. Water drips somewhere in the distance. My radio crackles. Static. I adjust the volume. More static than silence. Probably interference from the concrete walls. This happens sometimes during storms. I check between each car, marking off sections in my head. Row A clear, row B clear. My palms are sweaty on the flashlight grip. Row C clear. The beam catches something at the end of row D. A puddle of water reflects the light back at me. Nothing else. The temperature seems to drop with each step deeper into the garage. My breath fogs in front of my face. That's not normal for August, even underground. Goosebumps rise on my arms. A sound behind me, like something sliding across concrete. I spin around. The flashlight beam cuts through empty air. My heart pounds against my ribs. Sweat runs down my back despite the cold. Security, I call out. Anyone here? My voice sounds thin and weak. The garage swallows it up. Another sound, closer now. A soft scraping, like rubber soles on pavement. Or something else dragging itself along the floor. I turn again, slower this time. Nothing but shadows between the support columns. My radio erupts in a burst of static. I nearly drop it. Through the white noise, I hear something that might be words, might be breathing, might be neither. To hell with this. I'm going back upstairs to call for backup. I walk quickly toward the stairwell, forcing myself not to run. The flashlight beam bounces with each step. Shadows leap and dance on the walls. The stairwell door seems farther away than before. My footsteps sound wrong, like there's an echo just slightly out of sync, like something following just a few steps behind. Don't look back. Don't run. Almost there. I reach for the door handle. The metal is ice cold against my palm. Behind me, the scraping sound gets louder. Closer. My fingers fumble with the handle. The door opens with a metallic shriek. I take the stairs 2 at a time. The echo of footsteps continues behind me. Not quite matching my pace, not quite human. I burst through the door into the security office, slam it shut, lock it. For a long moment, I just stand there breathing hard. Sweat soaks through my uniform shirt. My hands shake as I set down the flashlight and radio. The monitors show empty parking spaces. No movement, no shadows. Just concrete and cars and flickering fluorescent lights. I drop into my chair, legs weak with relief. Movement on monitor 4 catches my eye. The same dark shape from before. It's in the stairwell now. Closer to the camera, closer to me. The image isn't clear, but I can make out more details. It's roughly human-sized, but the proportions are wrong. Too tall, too thin. The edges blur and shift like smoke. But the center is solid darkness. Darker than any shadow should be. It moves in a way that hurts my eyes to watch. Like each frame of motion skips and jerks. The shape reaches the top of the stairs. Stops. Turns toward the camera. The screen fills with static for a second. When it clears, the shape is gone. My phone is in my hand before I consciously reach for it. No signal. The screen shows only a spinning circle where the bars should be. I try the landline on the desk. Dead silence. Not even a dial tone. The rain pounds harder against the windows. Water runs down the glass in sheets, distorting the view of the empty parking lot outside. The bucket in the corner overflows. The dripping sounds different now. Heavier, more deliberate. Plunk. 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 I don't want to turn around. My body moves anyway, rotating the chair slowly toward the corner. The bucket is full of something too dark to be water, too thick. It drips from the ceiling in fat black drops. The fluorescent lights flicker once, twice, then go out. Emergency lights kick on, bathing the room in that sickly green glow. The monitors stay dark. In the reflection of the black screens, I see it. The shape stands in the corner where the bucket was. Taller now. The edges still smoke and blur, but I can see what might be a face. What might be eyes. What might be a mouth opening wider than any mouth should. My body won't move. Can't move. The air feels thick, like trying to breathe underwater. The shape slides forward. No footsteps. No sound except the rain and my heartbeat and that wet dripping. Plunk. 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 It reaches for me with something that might be a hand. Fingers too long, too many joints. The emergency lights flicker. In that stuttering green glow, I see what it really looks like. What it really is. I scream. The sound tears out of my throat, raw and animal. The shape lunges forward. The lights go out completely. They found me the next morning when the day shift arrived. I was curled under the desk, clothes soaked with sweat, voice gone from screaming. The security footage showed nothing, just empty halls and static. The bucket in the corner was bone dry. I quit that day. Found a new job working days at a warehouse across town. I don't do night shifts anymore. Can't handle being alone in the dark. Sometimes when it rains, I think I hear that dripping sound. Plunk, plunk, plunk. I don't look in the corners of rooms anymore. Don't check reflections in dark windows or screens. Don't want to see what might be looking back, but I know it's still out there. Still hunting. Still hungry. And sometimes late at night when the rain drums against my windows, I wonder if it followed me home. I never should have taken that security job at the old Riverside Medical Center. The pay was good, $20 an hour for night shifts watching an empty building. But money isn't worth what happened to me in there. What's still happening to me. The first night seemed normal enough. I walked the dark halls with my flashlight, checking doors and windows. The place had been closed for 2 years after the new hospital opened across town. Most of the equipment was gone, leaving behind empty rooms with bare walls and scattered debris. Paint peeled in long strips from the ceiling. The linoleum floors were dusty and cracked. I settled into the routine quickly. Start at the ground floor at 11 p.m., work my way up through all 4 levels, then back down again. Repeat until 7 a.m. The building creaked and groaned, but that's normal for old structures. I didn't mind the quiet. After working retail for 5 years, quiet was a nice change. Things changed on my 4th night. I was doing my 3 a.m. round when I heard it, a whisper coming from room 237 on the 2nd floor. The sound was faint, like rustling leaves. I stopped and listened. The whisper came again, clearer this time. It sounded like multiple voices speaking in unison, too quiet to make out the words. I shined my flashlight through the doorway. The beam cut through empty darkness. Just another vacant patient room, stripped bed frame, bare walls, closed bathroom door. I stepped inside, sweeping the light across every corner. Nothing moved. The whispers stopped. My heart was pounding as I checked the bathroom. Empty. I even looked under the bed frame, feeling stupid as I did it. The room was completely empty. I chalked it up to pipes or ventilation and finished my rounds. The next night, I heard the whispers again. Same room, same time. They were louder now, still unintelligible but definitely human voices. Multiple voices speaking together in hushed tones. I stood in the doorway, frozen. The sound seemed to be coming from the center of the room, but there was nothing there. "Hello?" I called out. "This is security. Anyone in here?" The whispers stopped instantly. I did a thorough search of the room again. Nothing. This continued for several nights. Each time I passed room 237, the whispers would start. Each night they got a little louder, a little clearer. I started dreading that part of my rounds. My palms would get sweaty as I approached the 2nd floor. Sometimes I'd skip that section entirely, taking the stairs to the 3rd floor instead. Then came the night when I heard my name. I was walking past 237, keeping my eyes straight ahead, when the whisper started up. But this time, mixed in with the indistinct murmuring, I clearly heard, "David." I stopped cold. The whispers continued, growing louder. Now I could make out more words. "David, come in. David, we're waiting." My hands shook as I pointed the flashlight beam into the room. The voices seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Multiple whispers overlapping, all saying my name, all calling me to enter. I backed away and practically ran to the stairs. I called my supervisor and made up an excuse about feeling sick. I went home early that night. I almost quit right then, but I needed the money and I felt stupid being scared of what was probably just my imagination. I went back the next night, telling myself I'd just avoid the second floor entirely. That didn't work. The whispers started reaching me even from the floor below. I'd be walking the first floor hallway and hear them drifting down from above. Dozens of voices calling my name, begging me to come upstairs. I started wearing earbuds and playing music during my shifts. That helped for a few nights. Then the whispers somehow cut through the music, becoming clearer and more insistent. The voices started following me throughout the building. They knew things about me. My full name, where I lived, my mother's name. Things from my childhood that no one else could know. David Michael Reynolds. Remember when you broke your arm at age 8? Remember the day your dog died? Remember the girl in high school? Come to us, David. Join us, David. I couldn't quit. I had bills to pay and rent due. I started taking anxiety medication before shifts. I drank energy drinks to stay alert. I only slept a few hours a day, plagued by nightmares of whispering voices. Last night, everything changed. I was doing my 3 a.m. round, music blaring in my earbuds when the power went out. The emergency lights didn't kick in. I was plunged into total darkness except for my flashlight beam. The whispers started immediately, louder than ever before, coming from every direction. Hundreds of voices calling my name, telling me to come to room 237. My flashlight beam started flickering. I ran for the stairs but got turned around in the darkness. Somehow I ended up in front of room 237. The whispers were deafening now. My flashlight died completely. In the pitch blackness, I felt cold hands grab my arms. Dozens of ice-cold fingers gripped me, pulling me forward. I screamed and fought, but there were too many. They dragged me into the room. The door slammed shut behind me. In the darkness, I felt bodies pressing in around me. Cold, silent forms pushing closer and closer. The whispers filled my head, drowning out my own thoughts. You're home now, David. You're one of us now, David. Stay with us, David. I don't remember what happened next. I woke up on the floor of room 237 when my replacement arrived for the morning shift. He found me curled up in the corner, shivering and mumbling to myself. I quit that morning, but it doesn't matter. The whispers followed me home. They're with me all the time now, getting louder each day. They whisper to me when I'm alone. They whisper in my dreams. They tell me I belong to them now. They say I'll be back soon. And they're right. I can feel it. The pull getting stronger. Every day it gets harder to resist returning to room 237. My body aches to go back. The whispers promise the pain will stop if I just come home to them. I'm writing this as a warning. If you're offered a job at Riverside Medical Center, don't take it. No matter how good the money is, the whispers are waiting there. They're always waiting, always watching, always hungry for new voices to join their chorus. I have to go now. The whispers are getting louder. They're calling me back to room 237. And this time, I don't think I can resist them anymore. They're right. I do belong with them. We all do eventually. Listen closely. Can you hear them? They're calling your name too. A warm bus seat shouldn't scare anyone. That's what I kept telling myself on my way home that night. But I couldn't shake what happened. I still can't. The doctors say writing it down might help. So here it is. Everything that happened at the garage that night. Just the facts. I've worked the night shift at City Transit for 6 years. My job is simple. I check the buses when they come back, make sure they're empty, log any lost items, and get them ready for the morning crew. Nothing exciting ever happens. Until 3 weeks ago. It was Tuesday, October 12th. The digital clock on the garage wall showed 11:42 p.m. when bus 247 pulled in. Jerry, the driver, waved goodbye like always. He never checks the bus himself. That's my job. I waited for the engine noise to die down. The cooling metal made those usual ticking sounds. The garage lights buzzed overhead. Everything normal. I grabbed my flashlight and clipboard, walked to the front door, and climbed aboard. Standard procedure, walk to the back, checking every row. Look for sleeping passengers, abandoned bags, anything out of place. I'd done this thousands of times. The rubber floor squeaked under my work boots. The emergency lights cast their dim glow. Halfway down the aisle, I heard it. A soft sound like fabric moving against fabric. It came from the back. I stopped, shined my light toward the rear seats. That's when I saw the figure. Someone sat in the last row, right side. Just a dark shape against the window. My flashlight beam caught what looked like the back of a head, dark hair, maybe a coat collar. "Bus is closed," I called out. No response. I took a step closer. "Sir, ma'am, you need to exit the vehicle." Nothing, not even a twitch. My heart started beating faster. Sweat formed on my palms, making the flashlight slippery. I thought about calling security, but they'd just tell me to handle it. That's the job. 5 rows away now. "This is your last warning. I'm approaching and you need to leave." 4 rows. 3. The figure remained perfectly still. No breathing movement. No shifting. Just that dark shape against the window. 2 rows away, my flashlight caught something strange. The edges of the figure looked wrong. Fuzzy. Like heat waves rising from hot pavement. 1 row left. My hands shook. The beam of light danced across the back seat. Empty. I blinked hard, looked again. The seat was completely empty, but something else wasn't right. I reached out, touched the vinyl seat cover. Warm. Not just warm. Hot. Like someone had been sitting there for hours. My fingers jerked back. The warmth wasn't natural. Bus seats cool down fast. We were in October, nights got cold. This felt like body heat, but stronger. Wrong. I stumbled backward, nearly fell. My flashlight beam swept across the windows, the ceiling, the other seats. All empty. The bus felt different now. Heavier. The air seemed thick. I ran, didn't even try to hide it. Just turned and sprinted down the aisle, my boots hammered against the floor. The front door seemed miles away. I burst out into the garage, gasping. Other buses sat in their lanes, dark and quiet. The fluorescent lights hummed. Everything looked normal, but I couldn't go back in, not alone. I called Mike, the night security guard. My voice shook when I explained. He didn't laugh. Mike's worked here 20 years. He's seen things too. We went back together. Mike had his hand on his pepper spray. Stupid against whatever this was, but it made us feel better. The bus looked ordinary now. We checked every seat. The back row had cooled to normal temperature. No sign anyone or anything had been there. I filed my report. Bus 247 cleared, no incidents. What else could I write? Nobody believes ghost stories, but it wasn't over. The next night, Bus 247 came in at the same time. I almost called in sick, but I needed the job. Everything seemed normal at first. Same procedure, same squeaky floor, same emergency lights. Halfway down the aisle, my flashlight caught movement in the back. My throat closed up. The figure sat in the exact same spot. Dark shape, no features, edges blurring like a mirage. This time I didn't say anything, didn't move closer, just watched. It disappeared between one blink and the next. Gone. The seat glowed with that unnatural heat again. This happened 5 more times that week. Always Bus 247. Always the last row, right side. Always the same figure that vanished when I got close, leaving that haunting warmth behind. I started documenting everything. Times, temperatures, weather conditions. The seat always measured 98. 7 degrees Fahrenheit right after the figure disappeared. Exactly human body temperature. The heat lingered for exactly 7 minutes and 13 seconds each time before cooling to normal. I searched through old records. Bus 247's history showed nothing unusual. No accidents, no deaths, no missing persons last seen boarding it. But something else caught my attention. The driver, Jerry? He'd been assigned to this route for exactly 3 weeks, right when it all started. I waited for him the next night. "Hey, Jerry, any weird experiences on your route lately?" He stiffened. Wouldn't meet my eyes. "Like what? Like someone sitting in the back who disappears?" His face went pale. "You've seen it too?" We talked for hours. Jerry had noticed it first. 3 weeks ago, a passenger got on at the Miller Street stop, paid the fare, walked to the back. Jerry didn't get a good look at their face. End of the line, the passenger hadn't gotten off. Jerry called back to them, got no response. When he turned around in his seat to look, the figure vanished. But the seat stayed warm. Every night since then, same thing. Same stop, same seat, same disappearance. We decided to investigate. The next night, I rode along on Jerry's route. We hit Miller Street at 10:47 p.m. The stop was empty, no one waiting. But the bus doors opened on their own. Footsteps sounded on the stairs, heavy ones. The fare box chimed, registering payment, but no one was there. We watched in the rearview mirror as the back seat cushion compressed, like someone sitting down, but nothing visible. 7 minutes later, the impression vanished. The seat radiated that familiar heat. We repeated this experiment for a week. Same results every time. We took videos, but nothing showed up on camera. Just an empty seat that got hot for no reason. I couldn't sleep anymore. Spent my days researching similar cases. Found nothing exact, but lots of stories about ghost passengers on public transport. Most people treated them like urban legends. Then Jerry didn't show up for his shift. Called in sick. The replacement driver reported no incidents. Next day, same thing. Third day, we got the news. Jerry had died in his sleep. Heart attack, they said. He was only 42. That night, bus 247 pulled in with its replacement driver. I almost didn't check it, but I had to know. The figure sat in the back, same as always. But something had changed. Now I could see a face in the darkness. Jerry's face. He smiled at me. A sad smile, then faded away. The seat felt warm when I touched it. One last time. Bus 247 never showed another ghost passenger after that. The replacement driver never reported anything strange. Life went back to normal, or what passes for normal when you know what I know. I still work the night shift. Still check every bus, every seat. But now I pay special attention to the warm ones. Sometimes a seat being warm just means someone sat there recently. Natural body heat that fades quickly. Normal. But sometimes that heat lingers longer than it should. And on those nights, I remember Jerry, and the figure that rode his bus, and all the things we don't understand about this world. I've never told this story before now. Didn't want to sound crazy, but it happened. Every word is true. I have the temperature readings to prove it, for whatever that's worth. The doctors say writing it down will help me process everything. Maybe they're right, but that's not why I'm sharing it. I'm sharing it because last night, on bus 186, I felt that familiar warmth again. Different bus, different seat, but the same impossible heat. I didn't look for a figure this time. Didn't need to. Just filed my report. Bus cleared. No incidents. But I'm watching the driver of bus 186 now, making sure they stay healthy, making sure they stay alive. Because whatever rides our buses after midnight, whatever leaves those warm seats behind, I don't think it's finished. And I don't think Jerry was its first passenger, or its last. I first saw him on October 12th. The date sticks because it was my birthday, and I was walking home late from drinks with coworkers. The old Victorian house stood like it always did on Cedar Street, dark windows covered with weathered boards. But something was different that night. Movement caught my eye. A shape in the upstairs window, barely visible through a gap in the planks. I stopped walking. A man stood there, completely still, staring down at me. Just watching. The streetlight didn't reach up that high, but I could make out his outline. Tall, thin, motionless. My skin prickled. He didn't move or try to hide when I spotted him. He just kept staring. I hurried past, my footsteps echoing on the empty sidewalk. That house had been abandoned for years. Everyone in the neighborhood knew that. The bank foreclosed on it back in 2019, and it had been empty ever since. Teenagers sometimes broke in to drink or spray paint the walls, but the police always chased them out. The next morning, I told myself I'd imagined it. Too many birthday beers. But as I walked to work, I looked up at that window again. He was there. Same position, same stillness. Just watching the street below. My heart started pounding. I crossed to the other side of the street and picked up my pace. The whole time I felt his eyes following me. That night after work, I drove by instead of walking. The man was still at the window. I slowed down to get a better look. His shape was clearer in the early evening light. Dark clothes, pale face, completely motionless, like a statue. I rolled past at 5 mph, craning my neck. He didn't react at all, just kept staring straight ahead like he was waiting for something. The next day, I called the police non-emergency line. "There's someone squatting in the old Marshall house on Cedar," I said. "I've seen him watching from the upstairs window multiple times now." "We'll send a car to check it out," the dispatcher said. I watched from my parked car as 2 officers approached the house an hour later. They shined flashlights through the boards on the first floor windows. One of them tried the front door, then walked around back. After about 10 minutes, they left. The dispatcher called me back. Officers found no signs of entry or disturbance. All doors and windows are still securely boarded up. No one inside. "But I saw him," I insisted. "He's there right now, in the front window on the 2nd floor." "Sir," they checked thoroughly. "The house is empty and sealed. Would you like to file a formal report?" I hung up. The man continued his silent vigil in the window. Days passed. Every morning and evening, he was there. I started taking photos with my phone, but they just showed a dark shape behind the boards, not clear enough to prove anything. I asked my neighbor Ted about it. He'd lived on the street for 30 years. "That place has been empty since the Marshalls lost it," he said. "Bank can't sell it because of all the structural issues. Foundations shot, roofs caving in. Nobody's been in there for years except some kids now and then. But there's someone up there now," I said. "I see him every day." Ted squinted at the house. "Don't see anyone. You sure your eyes aren't playing tricks?" I showed him the photos on my phone. He shrugged. "Just shadows, looks like. Place is all sealed up tight. Nobody could get in there without breaking boards off, and those are all intact." But I knew what I was seeing. The man never moved from his post, never shifted position, never reacted when I stared back at him, just watched. I started having trouble sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured that dark figure waiting at the window. What did he want? Why didn't he ever leave? After 2 weeks, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what was going on in there. I waited until 2 a.m. on a moonless night. The street was deserted. I parked a block away and walked to the house carrying a crowbar and flashlight. The man was still at his post, a darker shadow among shadows. The back door had 3 boards nailed across it. I pried them off as quietly as possible, wincing at every creak and snap. The door itself was locked, but the wood around the handle was rotted. One good shove with my shoulder and it gave way. Stale air hit me as I stepped inside. My flashlight beam showed peeling wallpaper, water stains, fallen ceiling tiles. The kitchen floor was littered with dead leaves and empty beer cans. The stairs creaked under my feet as I climbed to the 2nd floor. My heart hammered so hard I could barely breathe. Dust swirled in the flashlight beam. I reached the landing. The door to the front room stood half open. I could see the boarded-up window where the man always stood, but the room was empty. I swept my light around. Bare floors, crumbling plaster walls, cobwebs in the corners. No furniture, no signs anyone had been there recently. I approached the window. The boards were firmly in place, undisturbed. No gaps big enough for anyone to look through. A thick layer of dust covered the windowsill. Something caught my eye, a darker patch on the floor below the window. I knelt down for a closer look. Footprints in the dust. 2 parallel tracks, like someone had stood in the same spot for a very long time. The floorboards creaked behind me. I spun around, flashlight beam cutting through darkness. For a split second I saw him. Tall, thin, pale face, dark clothes. Standing perfectly still in the doorway. Then the flashlight flickered and died. I lunged for the door but hit solid wall instead. Disoriented, I stumbled backwards. My hands found the window boards. I pulled desperately, but they wouldn't budge. A cold breeze brushed past my face. The air temperature plummeted. I fumbled for my phone, fingers trembling as I turned on its light. The room was empty again. But now I stood exactly where I'd seen the footprints, directly in front of the window. An urge came over me, impossible to resist. I turned to face the glass. Through gaps in the boards, I could see the street below. A perfect view of the sidewalk where I walked every day. I couldn't move, couldn't look away. My body felt frozen in place, arms at my sides, head fixed forward. A man hurried past on the sidewalk below, glancing nervously up at the window. I recognized him. It was me from 2 weeks ago, the night I first saw the figure in the window. I tried to call out, to wave, to warn myself, but I couldn't make a sound, couldn't move a muscle. I could only watch. Days passed, weeks. I lost count. People walked by below. Joggers, dog walkers, parents with strollers. Sometimes they looked up. Most didn't. I saw myself pass every morning and evening. Watched as I took photos with my phone. Saw myself park across the street to stake out the house. I knew what was coming next. Knew I would break in tonight, climb the stairs, enter this room. Any minute now, I would arrive. And then I would take my place at the window, watching, waiting, just as the one before me had waited for me, just as I now waited for the next. Through the gaps in the boards, I saw headlights cut through darkness, a car parking a block away, a figure with a crowbar moving through shadows toward the back door. I stood perfectly still, watching, waiting. Footsteps creaked on the stairs below. I don't sleep well anymore. Not since that night 3 weeks ago. I keep the lights on now. All of them. The power bill will be insane. But I don't care. The alternative is worse. Much worse. I've moved my bed to the center of the room, away from any walls or corners where something could hide. Where it could hide. It started during my annual spring cleaning. My mom had been nagging me for months to clear out my old stuff from her basement. "David, you're 32. "I'm not running a storage facility," she'd said. She was right. So I drove over one Saturday morning and started going through the dusty cardboard boxes of my childhood. The work was straightforward. Most stuff went straight into garbage bags. Old school papers, broken action figures, tangled headphones. Some things I set aside to keep. My baseball card collection, a few yearbooks, my dad's old watch. Then I found the car. It was at the bottom of a box labeled David, ages 8-10. A red 1967 Mustang die-cast model about 6 inches long. The paint was chipped in places, showing the metal underneath. One of the doors didn't close properly anymore, but seeing it hit me with a wave of memories. This had been my constant companion for nearly 2 years of my childhood. I'd take it everywhere, to school, to the park, even to bed sometimes. My grandfather had given it to me for my 8th birthday, just a few months before he died. "This is special," he'd said, his liver-spotted hands pressing it into my palm. "Take good care of it." I remember being slightly disappointed. I'd wanted the new Nintendo game everyone at school was talking about, but something about the way he'd looked at me made me treasure it. The car had worked on batteries back then, with little headlights that would glow and an engine that made a soft purring sound, but those features had died years ago. Now it was just a silent piece of metal and plastic. I placed it on my desk when I got home, planning to clean it up sometime. 3 nights later, I jolted awake at 3:17 a.m. The red numbers on my alarm clock burned in the darkness. Something had woken me, but I wasn't sure what. Then I heard it. A soft scraping sound like metal on wood. It came from the direction of my desk. I lay perfectly still, holding my breath. The sound came again. Scrape, Pause. Scrape. My mind raced through possibilities. A mouse? The house settling? The heating system? But I knew those sounds. This was different. The scraping stopped. Now there was a new sound. Tiny clicks, like miniature footsteps on my hardwood floor. They were moving, getting closer to my bed. My hand inched toward the lamp on my nightstand. The clicks stopped. The silence felt heavy, pressing against my ears. My fingers found the switch. Click. Light flooded the room. And there it was, the Mustang, sitting perfectly still at the foot of my bed. Its front end was pointed directly at my face, like it was staring at me. But that was impossible. I'd left it on my desk, a good 15 feet away. I remember specifically placing it next to my laptop before going to bed. I hadn't touched it since. I sat up slowly, my heart pounding against my ribs. The car didn't move. It just sat there, its chrome bumper reflecting the lamplight. I reached for my phone, took a picture. I needed proof I wasn't imagining this. Minutes passed. I didn't blink. Neither did the car. Finally, I swung my legs out of bed, keeping my eyes locked on the toy. With shaking hands, I picked it up. It felt cold, much colder than it should have been in my warm room. I walked to my desk and set it down exactly where it had been before. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. When morning came, I convinced myself I'd been dreaming. Had to have been dreaming. I went to work, spent the day staring at spreadsheets trying to forget about it. That night I made sure the car was secure on my desk before going to bed. I even took a picture with my phone to document its position. Sleep came slowly, but eventually I drifted off. The sound of metal grinding against metal ripped me from sleep. My eyes snapped open to darkness. The grinding continued, accompanied by a high-pitched whine that made my teeth hurt. It was coming from right beside my head. I turned slowly to my right. 2 tiny pinpricks of light glowed in the darkness, the car's headlights. They weren't the warm yellow I remembered from childhood. They were a sickly green, casting a pale glow on my pillow. The engine sound grew louder. The car was running, but there were no batteries. There couldn't be batteries. I'd checked. I screamed and jerked away, falling out of bed onto the floor. I scrambled for the light switch, my fingers slipping on the wall in panic. Light flooded the room. The car sat on my pillow, its front end cocked slightly to one side like a dog's head. The headlights were dark now, but I'd seen them. I knew I'd seen them. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I took more pictures. I needed evidence, needed to prove to myself this was real. The car looked innocent in the photos, just a toy sitting on a pillow. But I knew better. I grabbed it, it was ice cold again, and locked it in my desk drawer. Then I pushed my heavy office chair against the drawer for good measure. Sleep was out of the question. The next day I called in sick to work. I spent hours researching haunted objects online. Most of it was obviously fake, but some stories had a ring of truth that made my skin crawl. I found a forum dedicated to cursed items, posted my story. Most responses were jokes or skepticism, but one person messaged me privately. "Your grandfather," they wrote. "Where did he get the car?" I realized I didn't know. I called my mom. "Mom, do you remember that toy car Grandpa gave me? The red Mustang?" "Oh yes," she said. "He was so insistent about giving it to you. Wouldn't let anyone else touch it. Why? Do you know where he got it?" A pause. "No, but there was something strange about that. He showed up with it the day after your grandmother died. Said he'd found it in an antique shop. But your father swore he'd seen that exact car in your grandfather's house when he was a boy, 30 years earlier. They had a big fight about it." My mouth went dry. "What kind of fight?" "Your father said the car was evil, that it moved on its own at night. Your grandfather got very angry, said your father was trying to ruin your birthday. They barely spoke after that, right up until your grandfather passed." I hung up soon after. My head was spinning. When night fell, I couldn't stand to be in the same house as the car. I packed a bag and checked into a motel, but I couldn't stop thinking about it, sitting there in my desk drawer. waiting. After 3 nights at the motel, I knew I had to go back, had to deal with this. I returned home just before midnight. The house felt different, charged somehow like the air before a storm. The office chair was still pressed against my desk drawer. I moved it aside slowly. The drawer was empty. A soft purring sound came from behind me. I turned. The car sat in the center of my bed, engine running, headlights blazing that sickly green. As I watched, it rolled forward an inch. Then another. My grandfather's last words to me came flooding back. "This is special. Take good care of it." There had been something in his eyes when he said it. Desperation? Relief? The car rolled forward again. I understood now. He hadn't given me a gift. He'd passed on a burden. That was 3 weeks ago. The car follows me now. Every night, no matter where I hide it, it appears somewhere near me by morning. I've tried destroying it. Hammers bounce off it. Saws can't scratch it. Even fire doesn't leave a mark. Last night, I got an email from that person on the forum. They'd done some research. Apparently, there are records of a red Mustang die-cast toy going back to the 1940s. Always the same description. Always passed down through families. Always moving at night. They found something else, too. In every family that's owned it, the person who passes the car on dies within a month of giving it away. Every time. Grandpa died 3 weeks after my birthday. I've started looking for antique shops. Maybe I can find someone to pass it on to. But every time I think about doing that, I remember the look in my grandfather's eyes, the desperation, the guilt. For now, the car sits on my nightstand, its chrome bumper gleaming in the lamplight, watching, waiting. Sometimes, in the quietest hours of the night, I hear its engine start to purr. I don't sleep much anymore, but at least I'm still alive. I can't sleep anymore, not since that night on Route 50 in Nevada. I keep seeing her in my mind, that woman standing perfectly still by the roadside, staring into the darkness. I should have stopped, should have checked if she needed help, but something felt wrong, really wrong. Let me tell you exactly what happened. I drive that stretch of Route 50 twice a week for work, hauling industrial supplies between Eerie and Carson City. They call it the loneliest road in America for a reason. Nothing but sagebrush, dirt, and mountains for hundreds of miles. Most nights I don't see another car for hours. It was Thursday, October 12th. Clear night, quarter moon. The dashboard clock showed 11:47 p.m. when I first saw her. My headlights caught something pale by the shoulder about 50 yards ahead. As I got closer, I saw it was a woman in a white dress. She stood completely motionless, facing the empty desert, back turned to the road. I slowed down to about 40, checking my mirrors out of habit. No other cars in sight, just endless dark highway behind me. The woman didn't move or try to flag me down, didn't even turn her head as my truck rumbled past. Just kept staring into the blackness like she was watching something out there. My hands tightened on the wheel. The route had its share of weird stuff. Abandoned cars, random hitchhikers, even the occasional cult gathering out in the desert. But something about this felt different. The woman's stillness bothered me. People in trouble move around, wave their arms, try to get attention. They don't just stand there like statues. I grabbed my phone to call highway patrol, but no signal. Typical for that section. I considered stopping, but my delivery schedule was tight. And honestly, the whole scene gave me the creeps. I figured she probably had a car nearby, maybe waiting for someone. I'd check on my return trip in a few hours. The rest of the drive to Carson City was normal. Made my delivery on time. Grabbed coffee and a sandwich at the 24-hour diner I always stop at. Headed back east around 3 a.m. My truck's headlights cut through the darkness as I approached the same stretch of road. The night had gotten colder. The temperature gauge showed 42 degrees. I slowed down as I neared the spot where I'd seen her, expecting it to be empty. She was still there. Exactly the same position. Same white dress. Same rigid posture. Same fixed stare into the desert. like she hadn't moved a muscle in 3 hours. My stomach clenched. The air in the cab felt suddenly thick. This wasn't right. Nobody stands motionless for hours in the cold desert night. I pulled over about 100 yards past her, gravel crunching under my tires. I sat there, engine idling, watching in my side mirror. She didn't react to my truck, didn't turn, didn't move at all. "This is stupid," I muttered, reaching for the door handle. I needed to check if she was okay, but my hand was shaking. I opened the door. The desert night hit me with a blast of cold air. My boots crunched on the gravel shoulder as I walked toward her. The only sounds were my footsteps and the low rumble of my truck's engine. 50 feet away now, still no movement from her. Her dress was simple, knee-length, no patterns. Long dark hair hung straight down her back. Her arms hung at her sides. 30 feet, my throat felt dry. Something about her stance seemed wrong. Too perfect, too still. 20 feet. My flashlight beam played across her back. The dress was dirty, stained with something dark around the edges. 10 feet. I could hear my own breathing, too loud in the silence. "Ma'am?" My voice came out hoarse. "You okay? Need any help?" Nothing. Not even a twitch. 5 feet away. My hand reached out toward her shoulder. A coyote howled somewhere in the distance. I jumped, heart pounding. When I looked back, she was facing me. I didn't see her turn. Didn't hear any movement. 1 second she was facing the desert. The next, she was staring right at me. But wrong. All wrong. Her face was gray. Not pale, but the color of concrete. Her eyes were black holes, no whites visible. Her mouth hung open at an impossible angle, jaw distended like a snake's. The dress wasn't white anymore. It was covered in dark stains that looked black in my flashlight beam. I ran, faster than I've ever run in my life. Scrambled into my truck cab, slammed the door, threw it in drive. The tires spun on gravel before catching. I floored it. The mirror showed empty road behind me. Just darkness where she had been. My hands shook so bad I could barely keep the wheel straight. Cold sweat soaked my shirt. I drove 90 miles an hour until I hit the next town. I called Highway Patrol once I had phone service. Gave them the mile marker, described what I saw. The dispatcher took the information politely, but I could tell she didn't believe me. Probably thought I was drunk or high. They sent a car out to check. Found nothing. No footprints in the gravel. No signs anyone had been there. I've made that run 12 times since then. Always in daylight now. I keep thinking about those black eyes. That wrong, twisted face. But mostly I think about those 3 hours she stood there perfectly still, staring into nothing. What was she watching out there in the desert? What was she waiting for? Sometimes when I drive that stretch, I think I see something white by the roadside up ahead. Just for a second. Then it's gone. But I never slow down anymore. Never stop. I finally told my wife last week, after another sleepless night. She suggested trauma counseling. Maybe she's right. But I know what I saw. Yesterday I requested a transfer to the Reno-Salt Lake City route. It's a longer drive, worse pay. But it doesn't pass through that empty stretch of Route 50. I can't face that road at night again. Can't risk seeing her there, standing motionless in her bloody dress, waiting to turn around. Sometimes I wonder if I should have stopped the first time. If I could have helped her, or prevented something. But deep down, I know better. Whatever I saw by that roadside wasn't human. Wasn't alive, and it wasn't waiting for help. I check the news sometimes looking for missing persons reports from that area. Strange deaths, unexplained disappearances. So far, nothing. But I keep checking. The desert holds on to its secrets, and some things are better left alone on dark highways. I learned that lesson on Route 50. I just hope I'm the only one who has to see her out there, standing perfectly still, staring into the endless night. I try not to think about the other drivers on that road, the ones who might be brave enough or foolish enough to stop, to walk up to that white figure by the roadside, to wait for it to turn around. But sometimes, In the darkest part of night when sleep won't come, I imagine headlights approaching on that empty highway, slowing down, stopping, boots on gravel, a voice calling out, and something turning around to answer. The clock on my dashboard read 11:47 p.m. when I pulled into the rest stop. My bladder was about to burst, and I hadn't seen another car for the last 40 miles on that stretch of highway. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the empty parking lot. Only one other vehicle sat there, a blue pickup truck parked near the entrance. I killed the engine and sat for a moment, letting my eyes adjust to the harsh lighting. The rest stop building was a plain concrete structure with vending machines visible through dirty windows. A single security light cast yellow circles on the cracked sidewalk. My boots crunched on loose gravel as I walked to the entrance. The door creaked when I pushed it open. The linoleum floor showed years of wear, and the whole place smelled like industrial cleaner mixed with stale coffee. A guy in a leather jacket stood at the vending machine, his back to me. He didn't turn around when I walked in. The men's room door was propped open with a rubber stopper. Inside, 3 urinals lined one wall and 2 stalls took up the other side. The fluorescent light above the mirror flickered every few seconds. Water dripped steadily from one of the faucets. I went to the middle urinal and unzipped. The bathroom door squeaked behind me. Probably the guy from the vending machine coming in. I kept my eyes forward, following the unwritten rules of men's room etiquette. The dripping faucet echoed off the tile walls. My neck tingled. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't place it. The air felt heavier, colder. "James." The voice came from right beside my ear. Deep, raspy, like sandpaper on concrete. I jerked my head to the side. Nobody was there. My heart slammed against my ribs. I zipped up fast, almost catching myself in the zipper. "James." The voice again, this time from the other side. Close enough that I should have felt breath on my neck, but when I spun around, the bathroom was empty. I backed toward the door, scanning every corner. The stall doors were open, no one hiding there, no windows or other entrances, just tile walls, porcelain fixtures, and that damn dripping faucet. My hands shook as I reached for the door handle. The metal felt ice cold under my palm. "James." Behind me now, right behind me. I yanked the door open and stumbled into the main area. The vending machine guy was gone. His truck still sat in the lot, visible through the windows, but he'd vanished. The buzzing fluorescents seemed louder now. They cast harsh shadows that made every corner look deeper, darker. I walked to the entrance, moving faster with each step. The sound of my boots on the floor echoed too loudly in the empty space. The exit door wouldn't budge when I pushed it. I tried again, harder. It felt like something was holding it from the other side. My breath came in short gasps. "James." The voice filled the whole room now, bouncing off every surface. "Stay." "Fuck this," I said out loud. My voice sounded thin and weak compared to the other one. I slammed my shoulder into the door. It flew open and I stumbled into the parking lot. The blue pickup truck was gone. I hadn't heard it start up or drive away. The parking lot was completely empty except for my car. I ran to my vehicle, fumbling with my keys. The fluorescent lights above started going out one by one, plunging sections of the lot into darkness. I dropped the keys, snatched them up, and finally got the door open. The engine roared to life. I threw it in reverse and stomped the gas. Gravel sprayed as I spun the car around and accelerated toward the highway. In my rearview mirror, the rest stop disappeared into darkness. The last light went out just before I lost sight of it completely. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept checking the mirror, expecting to see headlights behind me, but the road stayed empty and dark. After 10 miles, I spotted another rest stop ahead. My bladder screamed for relief. I still hadn't actually used the bathroom, but I pressed the gas harder and drove past it. I didn't stop again until I reached the next town, 20 miles further. The 24-hour gas station had bright lights and 3 other customers inside. The teenage clerk looked up from his phone when I walked in. Normal. Safe. In the bathroom, I checked every stall before using the urinal. No voice called my name. just the hum of the overhead lights and distant pop music from the store's speakers. Back in my car, I pulled up Google Maps. I needed to find a route home that avoided that stretch of highway. The map showed the road I'd been on, but where the rest stop should have been, there was nothing marked, just empty land between exits. I zoomed in closer. Still nothing. According to the map, no rest stop existed at that location. My phone rang, making me jump. Unknown number. I declined the call. It rang again immediately. Same unknown number. I declined it again. A text message popped up. Answer the phone, James. The phone rang a third time. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. The call ended, and another text appeared. See you next time. I turned the phone off and threw it in the back seat. The gas station's lights suddenly felt dim and insufficient. I started the car and headed for the interstate, taking the long way home. That was 3 weeks ago. I've mapped out new routes to avoid that highway completely. I don't stop at rest areas anymore, no matter how badly I need to, and I never drive alone at night. But sometimes my phone rings, always from an unknown number. I never answer. And sometimes when I'm alone in my bathroom at home, I think I hear water dripping from the faucet, even though I know it's turned off tight. Last night, I woke up at exactly 11:47 p.m. My phone was ringing. Unknown number. Before I could decline it, a text came through. Miss you, James. The bathroom misses you too. I've packed my bags. I'm leaving town tomorrow, heading west. I don't know where I'm going, but I know what I'm leaving behind. I just hope that's enough. Because last night, after that text, I got up to use the bathroom. When I flipped on the light, water was dripping from the faucet. And in the mirror, just for a second, I saw something standing behind me. It was wearing a leather jacket. I sleep in my car now. I need to write this down while it's fresh. Maybe someone can make sense of what happened to me last night at the Parkview Hotel. I've checked my phone records, talked to the staff, even called the police. None of it adds up. I arrived at the Parkview around 6 p.m. yesterday. Business trip to Cincinnati, nothing special. The hotel stood on a corner downtown, one of those old brick buildings from the 1920s. Brass fixtures, dark wood paneling, high ceilings. The lobby smelled like furniture polish and old carpet. The front desk clerk, Sarah, according to her name tag, handed me the key to room 412. "Fourth floor, end of the hall," she said. Her fingers were ice cold when they brushed mine. The elevator creaked all the way up. When I stepped out, the hallway stretched ahead, empty and silent. Dark red carpet, wallpaper with a faded pattern. The kind of place that was probably fancy 50 years ago. Something felt off the moment I opened the door to 412. The room was clean, normal looking. Queen bed with a brown bedspread, TV on the dresser, desk by the window, but the proportions seemed wrong somehow, like the walls weren't quite at right angles or the ceiling was slightly too high. I blinked hard, told myself I was being stupid. I set my laptop on the desk and started unpacking. The clothes went into the dresser drawers, which stuck slightly when I pulled them out. My phone buzzed. Email from a client. I sat down to respond. The room felt colder than it should. I checked the thermostat. 72 degrees. But the air had a clammy feel that made the hair on my arms stand up. When I walked to the bathroom, my footsteps sounded hollow on the carpet like there was empty space underneath. The bathroom mirror showed dark spots in the corners, where the silver backing had started to peel. My reflection looked normal, but something about the angle seemed wrong, like I was looking at myself from slightly to the side even though I stood directly in front. I splashed some water on my face. At 7:15, the room phone rang, the old-fashioned kind with an actual bell. I picked it up. "Mr. Davidson, this is the front desk. Just calling with your requested 6 a.m. wake-up call confirmation." "I didn't request a wake-up call," I said. A pause. "We have it here in the system. Room 412, 6 a.m. wake-up." There must be a mistake. I don't need one. I'll remove it, sir. Sorry for the confusion. The line clicked dead. I went back to my email but couldn't focus. The room felt bigger somehow, the corners further away than they should be. The wall clock ticked too loudly. Around 8:30, I heard voices in the hallway. Normal hotel noise, people heading to dinner or whatever. But they sounded distorted, like they were coming through water. When I opened my door to check, the hall was empty. I needed food. The restaurant downstairs was closed, so I walked a few blocks to a diner. Burger and fries, coffee, normal stuff. But the whole time, I felt off balance, like the ground wasn't quite level. Back at the hotel by 10. The lobby was empty except for a different desk clerk, an older guy with gray hair. He nodded as I walked past. The elevator seemed to take longer going up than it had coming down. When the doors opened, the hallway lights flickered. Just for a second, but enough to make my stomach clench. I took a shower, trying to shake off the weird feeling. The water pressure kept changing, surging, then dropping to a trickle. The pipes made grinding noises behind the walls. 11:45 p.m. I was in bed half watching a rerun of The Office on TV. That's when I heard it. A loud bang from the room next door. 4:14, like someone had slammed into the wall. Then another bang. And another. A frantic rhythm like someone pounding with both fists. The whole wall shook. I sat up, heart hammering. The banging got louder, faster. Now it sounded like multiple people hitting the wall. The noise was deafening. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the front desk. But before I could, the banging stopped. Complete silence. My hands shook as I dialed. Front desk. This is room 412. There's some kind of disturbance next door. Really loud banging. Next door? Room 414? Yes. Sir, that room has been vacant for several days. No one has checked in there. My mouth went dry. I heard banging. Lots of it. Just now. I'll send security to check. He hung up. I pulled on pants and a t-shirt, opened my door just as a security guard came down the hall. Tall guy, black uniform. You reported noise from 414? He asked. I nodded. He used his master key to open the door. The room was dark, perfectly empty. Beds made, no luggage, nothing out of place. The guard checked the bathroom, closet, everywhere someone could hide. Nothing. Room's been empty since Monday, he said. Sometimes the old pipes make noise. Probably what you heard. But those weren't pipe noises. I knew what I'd heard. Back in my room, I couldn't sleep. The wall clock showed 12:30. No, 12:15. I could have sworn it said 12:30 a moment ago. The TV turned itself on. Static. I hit the power button. Nothing. Unplugged it. The static continued for 3 more seconds before cutting out. The room felt huge now, the walls impossibly far apart. The ceiling had to be 20 feet high. But when I looked directly at any spot, the dimensions snapped back to normal. 1 a.m. The phone rang again. Your wake-up call is confirmed for 6 a.m., Mr. Davidson. I didn't request a wake-up call, I told you that earlier. Our records show the request was made at check-in. No. I've said twice now I don't want a wake-up call. Very well, sir, I'll remove it again. Click. My phone showed no service now. The Wi-Fi was gone too. The room felt like a void, disconnected from the rest of the world. The banging started again next door, slower this time, deliberate, like something testing the wall between us. I grabbed my keys and wallet. I didn't care about my luggage. I had to get out. The hallway light flickered as I stepped out. The elevator didn't respond when I pushed the button. I took the stairs, 4 flights down. But the stairwell kept going. 5 flights, 6, 7. The numbers on the doors stopped making sense. 427P. I ran faster. My footsteps echoed wrong, like I was running up instead of down. The air got thicker, harder to breathe. Finally, the lobby. Empty. No desk clerk. The front doors were locked. I heard footsteps behind me. turned to see Sarah, the clerk from check-in. "Checking out early, Mr. Davidson?" "Let me out." My voice shook. "But you just checked in." She smiled. Her teeth looked wrong, too many at odd angles. "The room. Something's wrong with it. Room 412 has always been perfectly normal." She stepped closer. Her movements were jerky like a bad video frame rate, though some guests do find it adjusting. I backed away. Her face flickered. Young, old, rotting, fresh, 1,000 variations in seconds. "Your wake-up call is still scheduled for 6 a.m. Her voice came from everywhere at once. I ran. Through the service entrance, into the kitchen, found a door marked "Exit," burst out into the alley. Cold night air. Normal city sounds. I ran 6 blocks before stopping. My phone worked again. 3:47 a.m. I called a Uber, went to another hotel across town. This morning I went back for my stuff. Different clerk at the desk, a young guy who looked completely normal. Said they had no record of my stay. No Sarah on staff. Room 412 was being renovated. Had been for weeks. I saw my reflection in the lobby mirror as I left. For a split second, it moved wrong. Like it was a fraction of a second behind me. I'm heading home now. But I keep checking the time, worried about 6 a.m. And sometimes when it's quiet, I hear something banging, very faintly, like it's coming from very far away, or getting closer. The next time I looked in the bathroom mirror, I noticed dark spots spreading in the corners, just like in room 412. I'm not sure my reflection is lining up properly anymore, and my phone keeps showing wake-up call scheduled 6 a.m., no matter how many times I delete it. I think room 412 followed me home. I should have known better than to buy used furniture. The price tag of $50 for a solid oak dresser seemed too good to be true. It was. The first weird thing happened the night I brought it home. I was unpacking some clothes to put in the dresser when all the lights in my apartment flickered. Just once. Quick, like someone flipping a switch. I checked the breaker box. Everything looked normal. I went back to unpacking. The dresser had 6 drawers, all lined with this old yellowed paper that smelled like mothballs and cigarettes. I started pulling out the paper. That's when I found the photograph stuck to the bottom of the top drawer. Black and white, probably from the 1950s. A woman standing next to this same dresser. She wasn't smiling. I tossed the photo in the trash. Should have kept it. That first night I woke up at exactly 3 a.m., not 2:59, not 3:01. The red numbers on my alarm clock said 3 banger. My room felt cold. Really cold. I could see my breath. The maintenance guy had told me the heating system was old, so I grabbed another blanket and went back to sleep. The next morning, I got ready for work like normal. Opened the top drawer to get some socks. Stopped. Stared. The yellowed paper lining I had thrown away was back in the drawer. All of it. Even the photo. I checked the trash can. Empty. The cleaning service wouldn't come until Friday, and I lived alone. I ran late to work that day because I spent 20 minutes searching my apartment for the old paper and photo I knew I had thrown away. Never found them. The next few nights followed the same pattern. Wake up at 3 a.m. Room cold enough to see my breath. But now I was hearing things too. The sound of drawer runners sliding on wood. I'd check the dresser every time. All drawers closed. 5 nights after buying the dresser, I woke up at 3 a.m. again. This time was different. All 6 drawers were open, not just a little. Fully extended. The kind of thing that takes deliberate effort. I sat up in bed. My heart pounded against my ribs. Sweat ran down my back despite the cold. The streetlight outside my window cast enough light to see into the drawers. Empty. I had emptied them the day before, moved all my clothes to the closet. The drawers slammed shut, all at once. The bang made me jump. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. Nothing looked out of place. The dresser stood there like any normal piece of furniture. I walked over and checked each drawer. Closed tight. That old paper lining still inside. And the photo. I picked up the photo again, looked closer this time. The woman wore a dress with a floral pattern. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her face had this hard look. Behind her, the dresser sat in what looked like a bedroom. A mirror hung above it. In the mirror's reflection, a dark figure stood in the doorway. I dropped the photo. It fluttered under the dresser. When I got down on my hands and knees to retrieve it, the photo was gone. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. Sat in my living room with all the lights on, watching YouTube videos on my phone to stay awake. When the sun came up, I called in sick to work. I spent the morning researching the thrift store where I'd bought the dresser. Found their phone number and called. "Hey, yeah, I bought a dresser from you guys last week. Oak, 6 drawers. I was wondering if you knew where it came from." The woman who answered sounded bored. "We get donations all the time. Don't really keep track. This one came in last Tuesday. Big dresser, probably from the 50s. Papers shuffled on her end. "Oh yeah, estate sale stuff. Whole house full of furniture. Owner died, no family. That's all I know." I asked for the address where the estate sale happened. She wasn't supposed to give it out, but I mentioned the weird things happening and she took pity on me. The house was across town. Small place, brick, overgrown yard. For sale sign in the front window. I knocked on the neighbor's door. An old man answered. Took some convincing, but he told me about the previous owner, Martha Kendrick. Lived alone for 40 years after her husband disappeared. Died in her sleep 2 months ago. "Disappeared?" I asked. The old man nodded. "Back in '53. Police investigated but never found anything. Martha always said he left her, but nobody believed that. She changed after he vanished. Became mean. Kept to herself." I showed him the photo on my phone. I'd taken a picture of it before it vanished under the dresser. His eyes widened. "That's Martha. Where'd you get this?" "The dresser in the photo. I bought it from the thrift store." He stared at the photo. "Something wrong with that dresser?" "Martha used to talk to it sometimes, late at night. We could hear her through the walls, arguing with someone who wasn't there." I went home and pulled up newspaper archives on my laptop. Found an article from September 1953. "Local man missing. Police suspect foul play." The article mentioned Harold Kendrick, Martha's husband, last seen at home. No signs of forced entry. No body ever found. That night I didn't even try to sleep. Sat in my bedroom watching the dresser. At 2:59 a.m. the temperature dropped. I could see my breath again. 3:00 a.m. The drawers opened slowly, one at a time, from top to bottom. The sound of wood sliding on wood filled the room. A voice whispered from the direction of the dresser. Female. Angry. "You shouldn't have bought it." My whole body shook. I wanted to run but couldn't move. The drawers slammed shut, one by one, top to bottom. Bang, 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 bang. Then they started opening again. Faster this time. The voice got louder. "This is mine. He's mine." Another voice joined in. Male, muffled, like speaking through a wall. "Help me." The drawers slammed faster. Open, shut, open, shut. The voices argued, overlapped. The female voice screamed. The male voice begged. I ran, grabbed my keys and phone. Spent the night in my car in the Walmart parking lot. When I returned in the morning, the dresser stood quietly against the wall. Drawers closed. I opened each one slowly. The lining paper was gone. The photo sat in the top drawer. I picked it up with trembling fingers. Really looked at it. At the figure in the mirror. A man in a suit. His face turned away from the camera. I flipped the photo over. Faded handwriting on the back. Harold and Martha Kendrick, September 15th, 1953. The day before he disappeared. The photo slipped from my fingers. Floated down to land face up on the floor. The figure in the mirror had turned. Now faced the camera. Harold Kendrick's face was twisted in terror. I sold my nice TV and bought a better one. Sold my leather couch and got a new one. But that dresser? I couldn't give it away. Couldn't sell it. Couldn't let someone else buy it not knowing what came with it. I rented a storage unit instead, moved the dresser there, changed the lock 3 times because it kept breaking. Every month I get a bill for the storage unit. Every month I pay it. Sometimes I drive by late at night. The light in my unit is always on, even though I never installed one. Sometimes I hear voices arguing when I drive past. A woman's angry shouts, a man's muffled pleas. I keep paying the bill. It's cheaper than therapy. Cheaper than the guilt I'd feel if I let someone else buy that dresser. The local paper ran a story last week about Martha Kendrick's old house. New owners renovating. Found something in the walls. Human bones. Male. Dated to the 1950s. They identified them through dental records. Harold Kendrick. The dresser's still in that storage unit, still locked up. But sometimes, late at night, I wake up at exactly 3 a.m. My apartment feels cold. I see my breath in the air. And I wonder if some things can't be locked away. If some kinds of evil seep through walls and doors and locks. I wonder if Martha Kendrick is still arguing with her husband, still keeping him close, even after death. I wonder if she knows they found him. I wonder if she cares. The storage facility called yesterday. Something about a broken lock. Again. I haven't gone to check it yet. I'm not sure I want to know if the dresser is still there. My hands shake as I write this. I need to get it down before I forget the details, before I start doubting myself again. The police won't listen. My wife thinks I need help. Maybe I do. But I know what I saw. I know what happened. And I need someone to understand why I can't take the 8:45 train home anymore. It started 3 months ago. I'd just switched to the late shift at the accounting firm. The overtime paid better, and Janet needed the extra money for her mom's medical bills. The commute wasn't bad. Fewer people. Quieter. You gotta know the regulars. He got on at Canal Street. Every night. Same time. 10:32. Worn brown suit. Probably 10 years old. Scuffed shoes. A felt hat with a small tear in the brim. He'd shuffle to the same seat. 3rd row from the back, window side. Eyes closed before he even sat down. Never moved. Never spoke. The first week I barely noticed him. Just another tired commuter heading home. But then I started seeing the way he watched me. It was subtle at first. I'd get off at my stop in Queens, and just as I stepped onto the platform, I'd feel something. A prickling on the back of my neck. When I turned to look at the train, there he was, eyes wide open, staring directly at me through the window. Not just looking, staring, like he knew me, like he was trying to tell me something. I started paying more attention. His suit never changed. The same brown fabric worn shiny at the elbows, the same loose thread hanging from his right cuff, the same yellowed shirt collar. His hat stayed on, even when he appeared to sleep. One night, I decided to count the minutes his eyes stayed closed. 2 hours and 13 minutes. Nobody sleeps that perfectly still. No head bobbing, no shifting, no response to the screeching brakes or announcement chimes. After 3 weeks, I changed seats to get a better look at him. I noticed his hands. They never moved from his lap. Pale fingers interlaced. No wedding ring. No watch. No briefcase or bag. Nothing to mark him as someone heading home from work. The staring got worse. More intense. His eyes would lock onto mine through the window, following me as the train pulled away. One night I swear I saw him smile. Just a slight twitch at the corner of his mouth, but it made my stomach turn. I started taking photos with my phone. Subtle shots, pretending to check messages. But when I looked at them later, his face was always blurred. Just that brown suit and hat, clear as day. But where his face should be, nothing but a smear of pixels. Janet found the photos. "You're obsessing," she said. "It's just some old man on your train. Maybe he recognizes you from somewhere." But I knew that wasn't it. The way he looked at me, it wasn't recognition. It was anticipation. I tried changing cars. He always appeared in mine. I tried taking earlier trains, later trains. He was always there, getting on at Canal Street at 10:32. I started losing sleep. At work, I'd catch myself staring at spreadsheets, seeing his face in the columns of numbers. My boss noticed, called me in for a talk about focus and performance. Last week, I finally broke. I had to know. When he got on at Canal Street, I watched him take his usual seat, waited 10 minutes. Then I got up and walked over. "Excuse me," I said. No response. "Sir, I see you every night. Do I know you from somewhere?" His eyes stayed closed, not a flicker of movement. I reached out to touch his shoulder. My hand passed through the fabric of his suit like it was smoke. Cold air hit my fingers and I jerked back. He opened his eyes. They were my eyes, my face, but older, much older, worn and lined and tired. The suit was mine too, the one I'm wearing now, aged by decades of use. I stumbled backward, fell into someone's lap. When I looked up again, his seat was empty. I ran off at the next stop, took a taxi home, called in sick the next day and the next. Yesterday, I forced myself to go back to work. Had to. Can't afford to lose this job. Took a different route home. Doubled my commute time, but I couldn't face that train again. As I waited for my connection at Jamaica Station, I saw him. Not on a train this time. Standing on the platform across from me. Same suit, same hat, same face. My face. He raised his hand in greeting. The station security footage shows nothing. Just me, staring across at an empty platform. I'm writing this at my kitchen table. It's 10:15 p.m. Janet's asleep upstairs. In 17 minutes, he'll be getting on a train at Canal Street. I know because I can feel it, like a tugging behind my ribs. The suit I'm wearing now, I've had it 3 years. The thread on the right cuff is starting to come loose. There's a small wear spot forming on the left elbow. Tomorrow I'm burning it, but I know that won't be enough, because I finally understand what he's trying to tell me. Every night on that train, for who knows how many years, he's been waiting, watching, warning. I see the pattern now. The overtime hours, the extra money we need, the long commutes getting longer, the slow wearing down of fabric and flesh. I know why he looks at me that way when I leave the train. Why his stare follows me onto the platform. He's watching another version of himself walk away, again, and again, and again. Time isn't a straight line. Sometimes it loops back on itself, like train tracks circling the city. Sometimes we get caught in those loops, wearing the same paths until we forget how to walk any other way. I called my boss an hour ago, told him I'm quitting. Taking that job offer in Boston Janet's been pushing me to consider. The pay is less, but we'll manage. Because I know what happens if I don't. I've seen it worn and tired and riding the 10:32 from Canal Street. Night after night after night, my hands have stopped shaking. The tugging behind my ribs is gone. I think, just maybe, I've broken the loop. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I can still feel wool fabric wearing thin beneath my fingers. Still smell the metal and electricity of the subway tunnels. Still see my own eyes staring back at me through a train window, filled with a sadness I'm only now beginning to understand. And I wonder, how many other versions of me are out there, riding through the dark, trying to warn themselves before it's too late? I won't be one of them, not anymore. Tomorrow we start packing for Boston, and I'm taking the bus to work. The empty swing moved back and forth in the morning air. The kid just stood there, his hand on the chain, pushing it slightly. Something wasn't right. I've seen plenty of kids in this park over my morning walks, but never like this. Never this still. Never this quiet. I should have kept walking. I should have minded my own business. But I didn't. And that's why I'm writing this down now, trying to make sense of what happened after. I'm a regular at Jefferson Park. Every morning at 7:30 I walk the loop around the playground. past the duck pond and back to my apartment. It helps clear my head before work. I'm an accountant. Numbers make sense. They add up. What I saw that morning didn't add up. It was Tuesday, October 12th. The air was cold enough to see my breath. Fallen leaves covered the ground, wet from the previous night's rain. The park was empty, except for me and the boy. He looked about 10 years old, wearing jeans and a gray hoodie. His sneakers were muddy. He didn't wear a jacket despite the cold. The swing creaked as he pushed it. Back and forth, back and forth. Slow, steady movements. His eyes stayed fixed on the ground. I stopped walking and watched him for a minute. He didn't look up. He didn't move from his spot. Just kept pushing that empty swing. My stomach tightened. Something about the scene felt wrong. Maybe he was lost. Maybe he needed help. I changed course and walked toward him. "Hey, buddy. You okay?" I called out when I was about 20 feet away. He stopped pushing the swing. It continued moving on its own, slower and slower. He turned his head toward me. His face was blank. No fear, no surprise, no anything. Just empty eyes staring at me. The swing came to a stop. The boy let go of the chain. He turned and walked away, his steps steady and purposeful. I watched him head toward the park entrance on Mason Street. He didn't look back. I stood there for a minute, trying to process what just happened. The swing hung motionless now. The chains didn't make a sound. I looked around the park, but there were no parents in sight. No one watching. Just me and the empty playground. I finished my walk and went to work. The numbers on my spreadsheets kept blurring. I couldn't focus. That blank stare kept popping into my head. I made 3 calculation errors that morning. That never happens. The next day, I almost skipped my walk. Something about the whole thing made me uneasy. But routine is routine, so I laced up my running shoes and headed out. 7:30 a.m. Same cold morning, same wet leaves, same empty park, same boy. He stood in the exact same spot, pushing the same swing. Same gray hoodie, same muddy sneakers, same slow, steady movement. Back and forth, back and forth. I stopped in my tracks. My heart beat faster. This wasn't right. This wasn't normal kid behavior. I pulled out my phone and took a picture. The image came out blurry, but you could make out his shape by the swing set. I walked closer, more cautious this time. "Hey, I saw you here yesterday. Are you okay? Where are your parents?" The same sequence played out. He stopped pushing. The swing slowed down. He turned. Those empty eyes fixed on me. No expression. He walked away. Same direction as yesterday. Same steady pace. I followed him this time, keeping my distance. He walked down Mason Street, turned right on Oak Avenue, and headed toward the old industrial district. I lost sight of him when he turned down an alley between 2 abandoned warehouses. By the time I reached the alley, he was gone. Both ends were blocked by chain-link fences. The only doors were padlocked. No broken windows within reach. Nowhere he could have gone. My hands shook as I walked to work. I made 6 calculation errors that day. The next morning, I brought my phone ready to record. 7:30 a.m. The boy was there. Same position, same actions. I hit record and walked closer. The video shows exactly what I saw the previous days. The steady pushing, the blank stare, the walk away. What it doesn't show is how cold it got when I approached him. The temperature dropped at least 10 degrees. My phone battery died immediately after he walked away, even though it had been at 98%. I followed him again. Same route, same alley, same disappearance. I called the police that afternoon, explained the situation. They took a report but didn't seem concerned. Kids play in parks. Kids walk home. Nothing illegal about that. The video, my phone wouldn't turn on to show them. Day 4. I arrived at 7:15 a.m. and hid behind a tree near the swing set. I needed to see where he came from. At exactly 7:30 he appeared, not walked up, not arrived. One moment the swing was empty, the next he stood beside it, hand on the chain, pushing. I felt sick to my stomach. I watched him for 30 minutes. He never changed his rhythm, never looked around, never stopped pushing. until I stepped out from behind the tree. The same sequence followed: stop, turn, stare, walk. This time I didn't follow. I spent that night researching missing children in the area. Nothing matched his description. No recent cases. No old ones that fit. I looked up the history of the park. No deaths reported, no accidents, nothing unusual at all. Day 5. I brought a co-worker, Dave, with me. Told him I needed someone else to see this. We arrived at 7:15 a.m. and waited. 7:30 a.m. The boy appeared. "Holy shit," Dave whispered. "Where did he come from?" We watched for 5 minutes before approaching. The temperature dropped. Dave's phone died. The boy went through his routine. Stop, turn, stare, walk. Dave called in sick that day. He hasn't been back to work since. I stopped going to the park after that, changed my morning routine, started walking on the treadmill at home. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. 2 weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. I went back. 7:30 a.m. The boy wasn't there. The swing moved, though. Back and forth, back and forth. Slow and steady. No wind that morning. I walked closer. The temperature dropped. My phone died. On the seat of the swing, pressed into the black rubber, was a perfect handprint. Too small to be an adult's. Just the right size for a 10-year-old boy. I reached out to touch it. The rubber was ice cold. The next day, they closed the park for renovations. The old playground equipment was removed, including the swing set. A construction worker found something when they dug up the foundation for the new equipment. Small bones. Very old. And a gray hoodie, barely recognizable after years in the ground. The police reopened a cold case from 1985. A missing 10-year-old boy, last seen walking home from school. He usually cut through Jefferson Park. They never found out what happened to him. But every morning at 7:30, I think about that empty swing moving back and forth, and those blank eyes staring at nothing. I work from home now. Numbers still make sense. They still add up. But some things in this world don't add up, and I've learned to live with that. Sometimes late at night I hear the creak of a swing outside my window. I don't look. I don't want to know if he's found me. I don't want to see those eyes again. Back and forth. Back and forth. I keep my blinds closed at 7:30 a.m.